Chapter 6:21. Don't make it difficult for us. The two men repeated their words with a hint of viciousness in their words. So what if I make it difficult for you? Immerse smiled indifferently and asked with a hint of ridicule. In that case, don't blame us. As the two spoke, energy surged from their bodies. One of them was of the time attribute, while the other was of the space attribute. Their energy intertwined, and the space around them seemed to be constantly surging like waves. Time and space intertwine, crush all things. The two let out a muffled roar from their throats at the same time. The black and chaotic energy on their bodies quickly swept toward Immerse. The black and chaotic energy kept intertwining, entangling, and surging around Immerse. In just a few seconds, Immerse was completely devoured. It seemed to have formed a small black hole. The two looked at each other, and a smug smile appeared on their faces. Who said that evolved dragons couldn't fight against super evolved dragons? Wasn't this so-called mentor MO a super evolved dragon? The two of them had defeated this guy in just a few seconds. After trapping this guy in the black hole, they just needed to bring him back. However, before the smiles on their faces disappeared, the black hole in front of them gradually disappeared. A figure walked out of the black hole with an ordinary face and body. The person in black was none other than Immerse. The smiles on the two's faces froze, and endless fear appeared in their eyes. How is this possible? How did he break free from our space-time black hole? Because they were too frightened, the two of them couldn't speak clearly. They really couldn't understand. This guy was at most a rank 2 super evolved dragon, and their space-time black hole had once devoured a rank 3 super evolved dragon. Why didn't it work in front of this guy this time? Immerse plundered their memories and knew what they were thinking. He chuckled. Because I'm not just rank 3. As he spoke, countless blood-red tentacles stretched out from under his feet. They crawled along the ground to the feet of the two, like countless red snakes crawling up their bodies, and finally completely devoured them. Meanwhile, their so-called time skills and space skills were completely ineffective against Immerse. It was only now that the two of them realized that this person before them wasn't just a 3rd grade, but a 4th grade. He might even be a 5th grade. Thinking of this, their eyes were filled with despair. Their space-time combination could restrain any attribute, which allowed them to challenge Tier 2 or even Tier 3 super evolved colossal dragons. However, no matter how strong their attributes were, the level gap was too large. They could do nothing about it. It was obvious that this person's level was much higher than theirs. Facing such a person, if they offended him, the only result would be death. The next moment, the two of them were completely swallowed by the blood-red tentacles. Another notification popped up in Immerse's mind. His dragon-slaying points had increased by 2. After killing these 2 people, his heart trembled slightly. In his mind, he said, "System, check in for a special event." The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in event. Killed space-time attribute dragon. Sign in reward. Dragon bloodline, second mutation of the dragon vein. Immerse was very surprised. Today's sign in reward was very strange. Just as he was surprised, his body began to change. He felt 2 streams of energy rushing from his left and right arms to his hands. Finally, they gathered in his palms. 2 vortexes were formed. The energy kept spinning in these 2 vortexes and was swallowed by them. At the same time, the color of these 2 vortexes kept changing. Finally, the vortex on his left hand turned into a chaotic color, and the vortex on his right hand turned black. Immerse looked at his hands. The chaotic color on his left hand represented the time attribute. The black color on his right hand represented the space attribute. Time on my left hand, space on my right. Combine left and right, reverse time and space. Immerse said these 2 sentences for no reason. At this moment, energy surged in his hands. Immerse couldn't help but squat down. He stretched out his left index finger. He pointed at a blade of grass by the lake. The chaotic energy gushed out from his index finger and was absorbed by the blade of grass. In the next moment, the blade of grass grew rapidly, reaching a height of more than a foot. Then it began to turn yellow and finally completely withered like a piece of hay in winter. It was September, and the summer vacation hadn't completely ended yet. However, this blade of grass seemed to have experienced autumn and winter in this short moment. The time attribute is indeed amazing. Energy surged in Immerse's right hand again. Facing the blade of grass, he gently separated his right index and middle fingers. A stream of black energy entered the blade of grass. The blade of grass was quickly torn into countless small powder. He didn't use dragon consciousness, nor did he use any other energy attack. Instead, he used a space attribute skill to refine the space where the blade of grass was into countless small fragments. Then, he tore the blade of grass into pieces. Just imagine, if he used such a skill on a giant dragon, the giant dragon wouldn't be able to resist at all. No wonder the time attribute and space attribute were the two strongest attributes in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. And now, Immerse had time in his left hand and space in his right. Such a person had probably never appeared in the entire 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. Next, he tried to combine the energy in his left hand and right hand to perform a new skill. However, he had just obtained the energy of these two attributes after all. He wasn't familiar with them yet, so he failed after more than 10 attempts. Immerse didn't force it. He just let nature take its course. Right now, he was a 6th grade super-evolved giant dragon and had mastered many 9 dragon transformations. Now that he had the time and space attributes, he had become the ceiling of the entire Cloud Sea planet. To put it bluntly, as long as he wanted to, he could do whatever he wanted on Cloud Sea planet. No one or any force could stop him. However, he had always kept a low profile. He was invincible in Cloud Sea planet, but who knew if there were even more powerful existences on other planets? For example, the ancient dragons. Therefore, before he became an ancient dragon, he felt that he had to keep a low profile. Once he became an ancient dragon, he would go on a killing spree and quickly advance. In his opinion, once he became an ancient dragon, it would be even harder to kill him. Then, he would reveal his true identity. Even if there were other more powerful ancient dragons, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything to him. 2 hours later, in Cloud Sea Starry Cloud City, Konghai's mansion, 2 subordinates reported to Konghai. Lord Konghai, he doesn't want to join us. Konghai sighed. If he doesn't want to, then so be it. My lord, should we kill him? Forget it. As long as he doesn't make an enemy out of us. Moreover, who knows what faction is behind him? Chapter 622. Cloud Sea City, Shi Family Mansion. In Shi Mingyue's study. Shi Mingyue frowned slightly and said, Men. Soon, the door opened and a person who looked like a guard walked in. Shi Mingyue asked, The 2 people who went to Immerse's place haven't returned yet. The guard replied, Not yet, my lord. Find out why they haven't returned yet. There was a trace of impatience in Shi Mingyue's tone. The guard knew that Shi Mingyue was a little angry and quickly cupped his fists. Yes, my lord. Then he took out a small device on his left arm and turned it on. A blue beam of light shot out from the top of the device. In the beam of light was the projection of the 2 people. The 2 people left the Shi family mansion and took a flying car all the way to the lakeside villa. Soon, they got off the car at the lakeside villa. They came in front of Immerse. After saying a few words, he moved and created a black hole. The black hole began to devour Immerse, but a moment later, Immerse walked out. Then, he killed the 2 people. Seeing this, the guard couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Because of the 2 people sent by Shi Mingyue, one was of the time attribute, and the other was of the space attribute. The 2 of them worked together to reverse time and space. In theory, the 2 of them could kill a grade 3 super-evolved giant dragon instantly. Even if they encountered a grade 4 super-evolved giant dragon, they could fight it. But now, they were easily killed by Immerse. This was enough to show that Immerse's strength was very likely that of a grade 4 super-evolved giant dragon, or even a grade 5. If he really reached grade 5, he would be the strongest existence in the entire Cloud Sea planet. Previously, the Star Master was the strongest on Cloud Sea planet, a grade 5 super-evolved giant dragon. Now that the Star Master was dead, the strongest person was the man in front of him. Shi Mingyue's brows furrowed when she saw this. She thought that this guy was at most a grade 3 super-evolved giant dragon, and that she could easily defeat him. She didn't expect this guy to be so strong. But soon, a fierce look flashed across her face. Since I can't use him, then I'll destroy him. No one on Cloud Sea Planet was his match, but what about outside of Cloud Sea Planet? Thinking of this, Shi Mingyue dialed an interstellar number. The person on the phone was not a human or a dragon, but a blurry shadow. Senior brother, I have something I need your help with. The blurry shadow wriggled and made a strange rustling sound, similar to the rustling of leaves in the wind. If you want my help, the price is not low. I know. Come first. The blurry shadow paused for a moment before saying, Blood brothers settle accounts clearly. Let's settle the price first. Then it'll be easier to handle the rest. Shi Mingyue cursed in her heart. He was really King obsessed with money. But on the surface, he remained calm and collected. I need you to help me kill someone. How about a mid-sized spaceship? The blurry shadow chuckled. That depends on who you kill and what his level is. It might be 3rd grade. At best, it could be 4th grade. Then, he heard the rustling sound again. You have to pay more. Add your sister. You're really King obsessed with money. However, he remained calm on the surface and only nodded. How much do you want? Another 50 million, 30 million, 50 million, 35 million, 50 million, 40 million. Deal. The blurry shadow laughed again, laughing so hard that its body seemed to tremble. This reminds me of the business we did when we were young. I really missed that time. Shi Mingyue also smiled and shouted in a Chinibu manner, brothers of one mind. The blurry shadow continued to laugh. Sharp enough to cut through gold. The guard at the side kept cursing in his heart. Oh, this is called brothers of one mind? But it's true that sharp enough to cut through gold. Both of them are haggling for their own benefits. Of course, this thought was only in his heart. He did not dare to show any disrespect on the surface. Shi Mingyue hung up the phone. She cursed fiercely. Just like when we were young, there's no King brotherhood, only benefits. As she spoke, she took a sip. The guard at the side still did not dare to say anything. 2 days later, in the study of Shi Mingyue's residence, there was only Shi Mingyue and her senior brother. It was a humanoid creature wearing a cloak. They could not see what was inside the cloak. They could only see that it was pitch black inside the cloak. Shi Mingyue showed the previous video to the humanoid creature. How is it? Are you confident? The humanoid creature laughed a few times. Of course, I'm confident, but you have to pay more. Shi Mingyue frowned and her face darkened. Senior brother, you can't be householder Qian, right? The humanoid creature laughed and said, Didn't I say that even brothers should settle their accounts clearly? But didn't you already pay more the day before yesterday? That's different. You didn't say that this person was so strong the day before yesterday. Even the space-time duo was easily killed by him. Naturally, you have to pay more to deal with such a person. Okay, I'll pay more. Then how much do you want? Shi Mingyue was still a little impatient. Then let's add another 20 million. Shi Mingyue frowned. 20 million? Why don't you just rob? How can robbing be as fast as making money? Shi Mingyue shook her head. 10 million. The blurry shadow was still laughing. 20 million. 12 million. 20 million. 14 million. 20 million. 15 million. Deal. Shi Mingyue shook her head helplessly. You win every time. The blurry shadow was still laughing. You know that I win, but you still have to bargain. Can't you just say 15 million? I hope you'll find your conscience. Who knew that you don't have a conscience at all? You know that I don't have a conscience, but you still have to bargain. Are you brainless? Let's not talk about this. When do you plan to do it? The blurry shadow in the cloak seemed to sway a few times and said, That depends on the timing, the location, and the people. Okay, it's up to you. You just have to kill that guy within 3 days. If you're willing to pay more, I can kill him within a day. Senior brother, don't go too far. I've always gone too far. No, I can't afford it. Whoosh, you're still so stingy. You're not stingy? You're not stingy. You let me increase it again and again. Whoosh, I'm your senior brother. This is your filial piety to me. On the evening of the 3rd day, after Immerse helped a few students break through, he came to the lakeside again. He was still lying on the recliner, enjoying the evening breeze while drinking tea. It was indescribably comfortable, and at this moment, a black shadow quickly floated over from the distant sky. Chapter 6:23. Immerse was by the lake, enjoying the evening breeze and drinking tea. A black shadow suddenly flew over from afar. Doomsday sensed it with his draconic will and found that the black shadow was not solid. Instead, it was more like a cloud of mist. Is it a magical dragon? Immerse was slightly surprised. Magical dragons had once appeared in the Myriad Dragons starfield. Those dragons originally had normal bodies, but after being invaded by some kind of magic power, their bodies were reduced to nothingness, leaving only a cloud of black mist around their consciousness. They were called magical dragons. In history, there was once a powerful demonized giant dragon, whose strength had reached the 10th level of super evolution. Its body was illusory, and all energy and physical attacks had no effect on it. In the end, 2 dragons of the time and space attributes worked together to create a black hole and devour it. However, no one knew where the magic power in their bodies came from. Even after millions of years of research, no one had been able to find a clue. Fortunately, the appearance of those demonic dragons was extremely rare. In the entire history, there had only been 5 such occurrences. Who would have thought that one would appear here? The demonized giant dragon came to a place about 50 meters away from Immerse. It floated in the air like a ghost, observing Immerse. A short moment later, a rustling sound came from the center of the magical dragon. It sounded like the rustling of leaves in the wind. Russell, you are an interesting fellow. Immerse didn't mind. That was because he had already seen this person with the eye of the magical dragon. It was a 4th grade super evolved dragon. The only difference between it and other dragons was that its body was illusory. An ordinary dragon would have a hard time dealing with someone like this. However, Immerse had no such problem. That was because he controlled time with his left hand and space with his right. Even though he had just obtained the time and space attributes not long ago, he had an advantage over this person in terms of grade. It wouldn't take much effort to deal with him. This body of yours is rather interesting, Immerse said with a teasing tone. The dragon laughed once again. Someone paid me to kill you. Immerse tried to plunder his memories, but found that he couldn't do so. Thinking about it, it should be possible to plunder only if one's body was corporeal. However, this fellow didn't even have a body, so it was impossible to plunder an illusory cloud of smoke. Let me guess, it's Shi Mingwei? Immerse said slowly. The black smoke continued to let out a clatter of laughter. You really know that good-for-nothing junior brother of mine. I'm starting to like you. However, liking someone is one thing. If he pays me to kill someone, then you can't live. Of course, nothing is absolute in this world. If you're willing to pay a higher price for your life, then I can spare your life. Immerse laughed when he heard this. A shrewd businessman like you is rare in this world. You took money from him, and now he wants money from me. With a brain like yours, you can do anything. The black smoke trembled, and the cloak behind it also trembled slightly. Whoosh, most people are either scared or angry when they see me. It's the first time I've seen someone praise me. I like you more and more. In view of this, I can give you a 50% discount. If you can take out 100 million dragon coins, then I'll spare your life. Immerse shrugged. Do you think I look like someone who has 100 million dragon coins? The black smoke paused and said, haven't you earned 100 million from that nuisance cram school of yours? Immerse shook his head. That's not a small goal. It's not that easy to make money. The black smoke paused for a moment and said, I can also pay in installments. Why don't you think about it? How do I pay in installments? Immerse asked with a smile. Down payment of 4 million, and then give me a monthly payment. A monthly payment of 100,000. How about that? It's quite a good deal, isn't it? Immerse laughed again. Forget it. I can't make 100,000 a month. And the down payment of 4 million is a bit too high. Then how much do you want? I think if you give me 4 million and give me a monthly payment of 100,000, I can consider sparing your life. Immerse said jokingly. The black smoke paused for a moment and trembled a little. It was obvious that he was trembling slightly. Brat, I'm talking business with you seriously, and you dare to play with me? I shrugged again. No, I'm just talking business with you. It seems you want to die. The black shadow said and attacked Immerse. Immerse didn't know much about this black shadow, and he didn't know anything about magic. Of course, he wouldn't let it get close to him. At this moment, the chaotic light in his left hand lit up, and the black light in his right hand lit up. The two types of light shone brightly. Soon, the two types of energy gathered in his palms and formed a big ball. This energy ball, formed by the intertwining of two types of energy, formed a vortex as soon as it appeared. The center of the whirlpool seemed to have an endless suction force. Within a 20-meter radius, all the flowers, trees, and lake water were sucked in. The black shadow that was pouncing over was shocked when he saw this. How is a space-time black hole possible? How can you have time and space at the same time? No. As he screamed, he tried to flee into the distance. But the suction force of the space-time black hole was too strong. He was too fierce when he pounced, and he was only 5 meters away from Immerse. So, he was sucked in almost instantly. The moment before he was sucked in, he screamed in despair. I'll give you the 4 million down payment. Don't. In the next moment, he was swallowed by the black hole. Immerse retracted his hands, and the two types of energy returned to his hands from the black hole. The black hole disappeared completely. All of this took a long time to describe, but it happened in just 3 seconds. This kind of magic-possessed energy was hard to deal with. Countless colossal dragons in the 10,000 dragon starfield had died to deal with the 5 energy bodies that had been possessed by demonic powers. In the end, they barely managed to kill them. But this kind of energy had a fatal weakness. They were afraid of black holes. Space-time black holes were their natural nemesis. Even in his wildest dreams, this guy would never have thought that Immerse would possess the time and space attributes. Immerse was happy to have used the space-time black hole to devour him. The time and space attributes were so powerful. It was so easy to kill the energy of a 4th-grade super-evolved dragon. It seemed I had to practice the combination of time and space attributes in the future. Chapter 6:24. After killing the demon-possessed dragon, Immerse knew that Mingwei would definitely not let him go. But he didn't care at all. One had to know that with his current strength, he was basically invincible in the entire Cloud Sea Star. And at that time, Mingwei was at most a level 4 super-evolved dragon. Even if all the powerhouses under him were added up, Immerse wouldn't even blink. Of course, at that time, Mingwei might also invite other extraterrestrial helpers, but Immerse didn't believe that he would be able to invite an ancient dragon. With Immerse's current strength, as long as it wasn't an ancient dragon, even if he couldn't win, it would be easy for him to escape. So after killing the demon-possessed dragon, Immerse returned to his bedroom, as usual, when it was close to 12 o'clock. System sign in, he said in his mind. The system's voice quickly sounded. Sign in successful. Sign in reward. Dragon will has evolved into demonic will. Demonic will? Immerse was a little surprised. What is this demonic will? Demonic will, a type of psychokinesis. It's just that this psychokinesis has a certain killing intent. It can be used to kill dragons, or it can also be used to arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of enemies. It can be used to kill dragons, or it can also arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of enemies. Immerse was a little excited about this. Now, it was impossible to use Dragon Will to kill dragons in the 10,000 dragon starfield. Because the dragons' bodies were extremely strong, dragon eyes couldn't tear their bodies apart at all. But now this demonic will could kill dragons. Well, this was equivalent to Immerse having a method to kill dragons invisibly. And he could also arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of others. This was very powerful. In certain situations where it was inconvenient for him to make a move, he could use demonic will to arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of enemies. Immerse entered his earth space. He tested the power of this demonic will. With his current demonic will, it wouldn't be a problem for him to kill 3 to 5 dragons under normal circumstances. The power wasn't as strong as he had imagined. Thinking about it, it should be because the demonic will wasn't too strong yet. Once its power grew, killing 10,000 dragons with a single thought would no longer be a fantasy. However, this little bit of power was enough for now. Imagine how shocked and terrified the other giant dragons would be when they saw that he could kill a giant dragon with just a thought. However, these were only Immerse's guesses. In fact, the power of this demonic consciousness still needed to be tested by the WIRMS. Where was he going to find a dragon to verify it? The answer was simple. He had killed 2 waves of Shi Mingyue's men, so he definitely wouldn't let him go. Sooner or later, he would come back to find him. Since that was the case, he might as well take the initiative and meet him now. Thinking of this, Immerse moved his mind and appeared over 1,000 kilometers away. After that, he used his maximum speed to fly towards the main city of Cloud Sea Star, Cloud Sea City. Now that Immerse had become a 6th-stage super-evolved dragon, his speed was extremely fast. While flying, he tried to add a spatial skill to it. He was not flying, but flickering. You saw him appear in front of you, but in the next moment, he was already on the horizon. This kind of flickering was different from Immerse's previous teleportation. The previous teleportation consumed a lot of energy, but now he was using a spatial skill. This kind of spatial skill consumed very little energy. Moreover, Immerse was not proficient in spatial skills. If he was proficient, it was possible for him to reach tens of thousands of kilometers per second. At the same time, in Cloud Sea City. At this moment, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, wind and rain mixed together. In Kong Hai's residence, Kong Hai was discussing the upcoming plan with a few of his strategists. He planned to kill Shi Mingyue tonight, and he knew that Shi Mingyue was not to be trifled with. Shi Mingyue was probably planning to make a move against him in the next few days. After discussing for about half an hour, they finally came up with a plan for tonight. Don't worry, Lord Kong. Tonight's plan is foolproof. As long as our plan is carried out smoothly, then Shi Mingyue will definitely die. Kong Hai nodded and said, I believe that after you kill Shi Mingyue, Cloud Sea Star will be our world. At that time, I will not treat you unfairly. The strategists cupped their fists and said, we will definitely do our best. At the same time, in Shi Mingyue's residence, Shi Mingyue was also discussing the plan with a few strategists. We have received information that Kong Hai is likely to make a move tonight. Lord Shi, then we must act as soon as possible and be one step ahead of them. As the saying goes, those who strike first gain the advantage. Those who strike later suffer. Lord Shi, now is the time for lightning and thunder. The storm is fierce. It is the best time to act. Shi Mingyue shook her head slightly. The others were puzzled when they saw this. Does Lord Shi have a plan? Lord Shi, if you don't act now, it will be too late for regrets. Shi Mingyue still shook her head slightly. I am waiting for someone. Could Lord Shi be waiting for the shadow, hidden under the cloak? Shi Mingyue nodded. That is my senior brother. With his strength, he can deal with a 5th-grade super-evolved dragon. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is the highest combat power on Cloud Sea Star. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this. I understand. Lord Shi wants to wait for senior brother to return. With senior brother here, there is almost no chance of us losing. Shi Mingyue smiled and nodded. You are right. At this point, Shi Mingyue called out to the door, Men. A fully armored guard quickly came in. Lord Shi. The guard cupped his fists and greeted. Senior brother is not back yet. No. Shi Mingyue looked at the time. It was already around 12:10 at night. Senior brother should have completed the mission by now. With his personality, even if he could not make it back in time, as long as he completed the mission, he would call Shi Mingyue to ask for the remaining money. Did something go wrong? Shi Mingyue's heart skipped a beat when he thought of this. He had sent the space-time duo, thinking that it would be easy for them to capture the dragon. Unexpectedly, the space-time duo never returned. Could it be that today was also the same? How is that possible? Shi Mingyue was much stronger than the space-time duo, let alone a 5th-grade dragon. Even a 6th-grade super-evolved dragon would not have an easy time in front of his senior brother. That guy cannot be a 7th-grade super-evolved dragon, could he? Just as he was wondering, a domineering voice came from outside the door. Shi Mingyue, come out and face your death. Even though it was a stormy night, this voice broke through the sky and the curtain of rain, echoing in the minds of everyone in the mansion. Shi Mingyue was shocked when he heard this voice. He was a scholar, and scholars were always very smart. That was why he did not go out. Instead, he went to the monitoring room. He looked at the sky through the monitoring room screen. In the rainy night, a figure was floating in the air above his mansion. A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. The person in the sky was dressed in black and had a cold expression. It was instructor Immerse, whom he had been looking for. Chapter 6:25. Seeing Immerse appear, a trace of fear appeared in Shi Mingyue's heart. The space-time duo had failed. Her senior apprentice brother had also failed. How is this possible? As far as Shi Mingyue knew, the strongest person she had ever seen was her senior apprentice brother, an existence that could kill a grade 6 super-evolved dragon with the body of a grade 4 super-evolved dragon. However, her senior apprentice brother had not returned, and this guy had appeared in front of her. Could it be that this guy's level had surpassed that of a grade 6 super-evolved dragon? No, that was impossible. How could he be a grade 6 super-evolved dragon? Shi Mingyue shook her head in fear. She ordered all her subordinates in the mansion, kill him. Kill him. There were some ruthless people under Shi Mingyue. Moreover, some of them did not recognize Immerse. Therefore, a grade 3 super-evolved dragon with a mohawk shouted, "Don't fight with me. He's mine." To be able to kill this fellow who had trespassed into the first mansion would be another meritorious service. Although Lord Shi's methods were ruthless, he had always been very generous. Killing this guy would definitely give them a lot of rewards. No one else went to fight with the Mohawk, because the Mohawk was a troublemaker. He was Lord Shi's favorite. Who would dare to fight with him? They could only curse in their hearts. This guy got first again. What a King bootlicker. The Mohawk had already condensed a pair of wings with energy and flew up. The next moment, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. The entire land was illuminated as if it was daytime. Meanwhile, the body of the Mohawk that had just flown up was instantly torn in half and fell from the sky. When the surrounding people saw this, they were all shocked. What was going on? They did not see the guy in the sky attack. Moreover, after the Mohawk fell to the ground, his body showed no signs of healing. It was important to know that dragons had extremely strong vitality. Their self-healing abilities were also very strong. Even if their bodies were torn in half, they would be able to heal themselves at the fastest speed. However, the cells in the Mohawk's body seemed to have died long ago. What was going on? In the midst of a shock, there was a grade 3 super-evolved dragon who was not afraid of death. Like the Mohawk, he roared, "How dare you trespass the mansion? I think you don't want to live anymore." Then he stomped his feet on the ground, and his body quickly soared into the air. When he was in the air, a layer of yellow energy appeared around his body. Then, the yellow energy in the sky condensed into a giant fist that was 1,000 meters long and 500 meters wide. It smashed down on Immerse. Even the rainwater in the sky seemed to have stopped under the impact of this earthy, yellow energy fist. This was the killing move of the rank 3 Earth Dragon. However, at this moment, the Earth Attribute Dragon's body was suddenly torn into several pieces. It fell from the sky, and at the same time, the khaki-colored energy fist disappeared. The rain that seemed to have solidified in the sky began to fall again. When several pieces of the Earth attribute dragon's corpse fell from the sky and landed at their feet, everyone was once again shocked. This Earth attribute giant dragon was best at defense, and its body was far stronger than other giant dragons, but now it was torn into several pieces in an instant. Just how much power was needed to do that? Moreover, no one saw how the guy in the sky attacked. That fellow kept flapping its blood-red wings, quietly floating in the sky, motionless. They did not see any signs of him attacking at all. However, he killed 2 rank 3 super-evolved giant dragons in an instant. What on earth was going on? Amidst the panic, someone said, "This guy is too strong. We can't deal with him alone. Everyone, let's kill him together." When he said this, the rest of the people roared one after another. They leaped into the sky. Moreover, they did not attack Immerse in their human forms. Instead, they transformed into their giant dragon forms. In the 10,000 Dragons Star Zone, the giant dragon form was the strongest combat form. Therefore, when giant dragons encountered a powerful enemy, they would usually transform into their giant dragon forms. In just an instant, more than 30 giant dragons appeared. Under the curtain of rain, each of these 30 giant dragons was 10,000 meters long. There were fiery red fire elemental dragons, golden metal elemental dragons, and yellow earth elemental dragons. More than 30 giant dragons almost occupied the entire dark night sky. The sky was filled to the brim. This was definitely the most spectacular scene Immerse had ever seen. If the people on Earth saw this scene, they would probably be scared to death. In the secret chamber below the ground, Shi Mingyue watched this scene on the screen, and her heart began to beat rapidly. More than 30 giant dragons were basically rank 3 super-evolved giant dragons. If they still could not deal with this guy, then they would have to bring out their strongest secret weapon. This time, Immerse in the sky finally moved. He did not transform into his giant dragon form. He still maintained his human form. He stretched out his hands slightly. The chaotic time attribute energy appeared in his left hand, and the black space attribute energy appeared in his right hand. Time in his left hand and space in his right. The left and right combined, and time and space reversed. The next moment, these 2 attribute energies quickly rose and intertwined in front of him. Then, an energy vortex appeared. This energy vortex appeared to be the color of chaos. However, it soon turned black. The next moment, a black hole appeared in the sky. This black hole was about 100 meters in diameter. The moment the black hole appeared, a huge suction force suddenly spread out in all directions. All the rain within 100 kilometers was instantly sucked into this black hole. Crack! A bolt of lightning that spanned across half the sky appeared. However, this bolt of lightning did not have time to illuminate the entire world before it was quickly swallowed by the black hole. When all the giant dragons saw this, their expressions suddenly changed drastically. A black hole that could even swallow lightning. What kind of terrifying existence was this? In horror, these giant dragons quickly fled in all directions. However, before they could escape, their bodies involuntarily moved toward the black hole. A fire giant dragon kept flapping its wings, trying to break free from its shackles. However, its tail was quickly swallowed by the black hole, and the power generated by its flapping wings was far from being able to withstand the suction force of the black hole. It seemed that in just a few seconds, this giant dragon was swallowed by the black hole. One must know that this giant dragon's body length reached 10,000 meters, and its wingspan reached more than 8,000 meters. The diameter of the black hole was only about 100 meters. However, the black hole had no difficulty swallowing this 10,000-meter giant dragon. The rest of the giant dragons originally thought that their bodies were huge and would be stuck in the black hole, and it would be impossible to be completely swallowed. However, when they saw this scene, they suddenly panicked. Chapter 6:26. Seeing that Immerse's black hole could actually devour giant dragons, the other giant dragons' expressions changed drastically, and they hurriedly fled in all directions. However, in the blink of an eye, the suction force spread toward them. Although they were giant dragons and had power far beyond the imagination of humans, compared to the suction force of this black hole, their power was so insignificant. The earth attribute giant dragons were sucked in, the metal attribute giant dragons were sucked in, the ice attribute giant dragons were sucked in, and the wood attribute giant dragons were sucked in. In front of this black hole, no giant dragon of any attribute could escape. And not only the giant dragons in the sky, but also the giant dragons on the ground who had not yet transformed into their giant dragon forms were sucked in one after another. They hurriedly struggled to escape. However, all their movement skills, teleportation, and flickering were useless in front of this black hole. Just like in any movie, these people were sucked up high. Then, they were swallowed by the black hole. Along with them, the buildings, flowers, and trees on the ground were also sucked up and swallowed. What was a black hole? It was a black hole that swallowed everything. At this time, the black hole, created by Immerse, was swallowing everything that could be seen in Shi Mingyue's residence. In the secret underground room, Shi Mingyue saw this scene and his face turned pale, especially when he saw the 5 rockery arranged according to the 5 elements in the residence being sucked up. Under the rockery, 5 hidden pipes with a diameter of more than 10 meters were also sucked up. Shi Mingyue's eyes were filled with horror. Hey, wait. I haven't even taken out the secret weapon, and it's already been sucked into the black hole. What the hell is going on? He regretted it. He really regretted it. He regretted provoking this guy in the first place. In fact, he didn't notice Immerse at all at first. He heard from his subordinates that Kong Hai went to invite Immerse, so he followed suit and invited Immerse. He never thought that he would provoke a fiend like this. Kong Hai, so this is your most powerful killing move? You deliberately led me to provoke this fiend. At this time, the only thing Shi Mingyue could think of was to escape. Facing such a terrifying guy, he could only run. He hurriedly took out a cube that looked like a Rubik's Cube. However, this cube was black in color, and it even emitted a faint black glow. One had to know that there was nothing in the world that could emit black light. However, this cube was emitting a black light, which was enough to tell that it was different from the rest. That's right, this was an escape route. It was an escape space created by a giant dragon with spatial attributes. As long as he entered through this entrance, he would appear at the exit in the next moment. The exit was on another nearby planet. Therefore, as long as he activated this escape space, he could quickly leave the Cloud Sea Star, run away from this fiend. However, when he activated the space and tried to enter it, he was shocked to find that he could not enter it no matter what he did. His face turned even paler. This is impossible. This space can't be fake. What's going on? Naturally, he did not know that Immerse had mastered spatial skills. As long as it was within a radius of 100 kilometers, Immerse had absolute control over the entire space. Even if you can teleport, you know some movement skills, and you have some kind of escape device. However, under the absolute control of Immerse's space attribute skill, there was no way for him to escape. Just as Shi Mingyue was panicking. Rumble, rumble, a series of loud noises kept coming. The loud noises seemed to be very close. It sounded like the sound of a house collapsing during an earthquake. However, when he looked up, he found that it was not the ceiling above him that was collapsing, but the ceiling that was collapsing. Hundreds of cracks appeared on the roof, so it broke into hundreds and thousands of pieces and flew into the sky. One had to know that his secret room was more than 20 meters from the surface, which meant that the 20-meter thick floor had already shattered into thousands of pieces and was sucked into the black hole. Shi Mingyue looked at all this in disbelief. He used to have the space-time duo under him, but that guy with spatial attributes did not have such terrifying strength. The strength that Immerse displayed made him despair. At this time, Shi Mingyue could only use his time attribute skill. The chaotic light on his body lit up. The chaotic energy spread out and quickly occupied a radius of 100 meters. He had to control time, at least control the time within 100 meters of him, so that the collapse would slow down a little, so that the black hole would slow down. Only then would he have time to escape. However, just as the chaotic light on his body began to spread out, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. The chaotic light on Immerse's body shone brightly. And this chaotic light was 100 times brighter and 100 times stronger than the chaotic light on Shi Mingyue's body. Almost in an instant, it swallowed the chaotic light on Shi Mingyue's body. At this moment, Shi Mingyue's chaotic light did not have any effect at all. Moreover, his body was rapidly wrinkling and aging. Shi Mingyue knew that this was the time attribute at work. He used to play this trick often, accelerating the flow of time on someone's body, letting that person quickly age and eventually die. But now he actually saw the time on his body being accelerated rapidly, and he was aging quickly. His body was no longer full, but quickly shriveled up. More and more wrinkles appeared on his body, and soon he looked like an old man in his twilight years. How was this possible? This guy actually knew how to use time attribute skill again. Wasn't he a spatial attribute? How could he know the time attribute? Could it be that he had mastered both the time and space attributes at the same time? God, what kind of guy did he provoke? It was okay to accidentally offend a pervert. No, Shi Mingyue only had time to let out such a cry before his body quickly shriveled up like a dried corpse. His cells lost their activity and his body lost its life. A person who played with time in the palm of his hand was finally played by time. Logically speaking, Shi Mingyue's time skill was better than Immerse's. After all, he had been playing with it since he was young, and had been playing with it for tens of thousands of years. However, he had no resistance in front of Immerse's time skill at all. This was all because there was a huge gap between his level and Immerse's. One had to know that between super evolved dragons, the difference between each level was like heaven and earth. He was only a level 4 super evolved dragon, while Immerse was level 6. No matter how good his time attribute skill was, it was as insignificant as an ant in front of Immerse's level suppression. Following that, the black hole continued to devour everything in the Shi family's residence. About 5 minutes later, everything in the Shi family's residence had disappeared. There was only a huge pit with a diameter of 5 kilometers left. Chapter 6:27. In the rainy night, a bolt of lightning instantly tore through the night sky, illuminating the entire world as if it were daytime. Immerse was suspended in the air just like that. He did not care that the rain was drenching him. He looked at the 5-kilometer-wide crater on the ground. Immerse sighed in his heart. The power of this space-time black hole was so great. Not only did it devour dragons and buildings, but it even devoured the ground. As long as it was within its suction range, it would devour everything. And this was the skill he had just obtained. If he could practice it more, how powerful would it be? Immerse estimated that with this skill, it would be easy for him to deal with a 9th grade super evolved dragon that was 2 or 3 grades higher. After becoming a super evolved dragon, the difference between each grade was like heaven and earth. Generally speaking, being able to deal with an enemy that was 1 grade higher was already very powerful. Immerse could now deal with an enemy that was 2 or 3 grades higher. It was obvious how much this black hole had boosted his strength. At this moment, the system's voice rang in Immerse's mind. Dragon slaying points, 1050-1000. Level up available. Do you wish to level up now? Immerse was overjoyed. His dragon slaying points were finally full. Level up. Time required for this level up, 5 minutes. The system prompted again. Immerse took one last look at the crater below. Seeing that there was nothing left for him to stay in this apocalyptic world, his figure disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared, he was already thousands of kilometers away. No one knew that the bright moon that shook the entire Cloud Sea planet on this rainy night had already disappeared. 10 minutes later, in the lakeside villa, Immerse's face was filled with joy. I finally reached 7th grade. It had only been 4 months since he came to the 10,000 Dragon Star region, and he had already risen to 6th grade. For those dragons that needed hundreds, thousands, or even thousands of years to advance to first grade. Immerse's speed was no different from sitting on a rocket. He estimated that at 7th grade, he could easily deal with a 9th grade super evolved dragon. He might even have a chance against a 10th grade super evolved dragon. However, this was not enough to satisfy him. Instead, it made him more eager to continue evolving to become an ancient dragon. In the eyes of others, a 10th grade super evolved dragon was already 10% powerful. Ancient colossal dragons, on the other hand, rarely appeared. However, since Immerse wanted to stir up trouble in the 10,000 dragon star zone, an ancient dragon would be the minimum requirement. Now that he was already a Tier 7 super evolved colossal dragon, would the ancient colossal dragon still be far away? While Immerse was getting excited at the lakeside villa, about 10 kilometers away from Shi Mingyue's mansion, a troop of about 3,000 people was passing by silently. Kacha, a bolt of lightning lit up the world as if it were daytime. Through the lightning, one could see that these people were all wearing black cloaks in the rainy night. They're like a group of ghosts. The leader of the group was a tall and sturdy man with a cold face. This person was Kong Hai. Thousands of years ago, there had been 3 great wars on Cloud Sea Planet. Another time was a war against foreign enemies. Kong Hai had performed exceptionally well in the past few battles. He killed so many enemies that they were terror-stricken. Thus, he built up his reputation and slowly became a loyal subordinate of the Star Lord. Now that the Star Master was dead, he had become a candidate for Planet Master. Originally, he planned to deal with Shi Mingyue in 2 or 3 days, but the weather tonight was too good, so he changed his mind at the last minute and gathered 3,000 people to kill Shi Mingyue. However, just as he and his 3,000 people were moving forward silently, a voice suddenly came from his earpiece. "Master Kong, something bad has happened." Shi Mingyue frowned and raised her fist, indicating for everyone to stop. "What's wrong?" "Master Kong, when we came here to investigate, we found that Shi Mingyue's mansion had disappeared." "Disappeared? What did that mean?" "My lord, this is the Shi family's residence. It has completely disappeared, leaving only a huge pit here." When Kong Hai heard this, he was slightly stunned. What was going on? How could the Shi family mansion disappear? In his surprise, he sped up and quickly arrived above the Shi family mansion. At this time, the Shi family mansion was no longer there. In the place where the Shi family mansion used to be, there was only a huge pit with a diameter of 5 kilometers. They used all kinds of technology to investigate if the Shi family was up to something. However, after more than 10 minutes, all the technology found was that the Shi family mansion had completely disappeared. "Master Kong, according to the space-time detector, we found that a black hole had appeared here. It's very likely that the Shi family mansion was swallowed by that black hole. As for the 700 people, they were probably swallowed by the black hole as well," a technician reported. Hearing this, the surrounding people felt a wave of shock in their hearts. Although the dragons had studied black holes much more than the people on Earth, it was still very difficult to create a black hole. Even if 2 dragons with time and space attributes worked together, they would need to reach 100% tacit understanding before they could create a black hole. However, in fact, it was impossible for 2 people to reach 100% tacit understanding. Even twins were impossible. Theoretically speaking, if one wanted to create a black hole, they would have to possess both the time and space attributes. However, the space attribute was already very rare, and the time attribute was even rarer. In addition, dual attribute dragons were also very rare. With all these factors combined, it was almost impossible for a dual attribute space dragon to create a black hole. Then what was going on? Amidst their astonishment, everyone began to inspect their surroundings. They didn't find any valuable clues. In the end, they could only conclude that the Shi family had provoked someone they shouldn't have. They were destroyed by that person. And currently, in the Nebula Sea Star, he couldn't think of anyone who could destroy the Shi family in such a short time. Then, it should be done by an alien force. This way, it would save him a lot of trouble. Originally, with more than 3,000 of them against the Shi family, although they would definitely be able to destroy them, there would still be casualties. Now, they wouldn't have a single soldier. Sure, Jia had been destroyed without any effort. Then, he could just sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. Of course, he didn't dare to make a move for the time being. What if the powerhouse who destroyed the Sure family was on the Nebulous Sea Star? I destroyed the Sure family, and you became the Nebulous Sea Star. No one will be happy with this. So, he waited for another half a month. In this half a month, he used his identity and status to inquire from various channels to see if there was a mysterious powerhouse that suddenly appeared. However, there was no news. It seemed that the powerhouse had already left the heart of the Nebulous Sea Star. Thus, Kong Hai began to inherit the position of Nebulous Sea Star. He inherited the position of Nebulous Sea Star in a very special way. There were 2 chairs left behind his seat. When his subordinates asked why he left these 2 chairs behind, he replied, "The reason why we were able to easily obtain this ruling power was all thanks to these 2 powerhouses. If they return, I am willing to hand over this ruling power to them unconditionally." Chapter 628. In the following days, Immerse still went to the Cloud Sea Academy for half a day and then stayed at the lakeside villa to tutor. He seemed to be aloof from worldly affairs. At the same time, the news of Shi Mingyue's destruction had spread throughout the entire Cloud Sea planet. Many forces were very surprised by Shi Mingyue's destruction. Many people were also very surprised. They all knew that there would be a battle between Shi Mingyue and Kong Hai after the sudden death of the Star-Lord. Moreover, that battle was likely to be huge and long. Many forces were already prepared to benefit from it. Many people had also moved their stools and were ready to watch the drama unfold in the front row. However, no one expected Shi Mingyue to be destroyed without a sound. It said that someone went to the Shi family mansion to take a look. Everything in the Shi family mansion had disappeared, leaving only a 5-kilometer crater. If you want to talk about big pits, many giant dragons can create them. But you have to know that the Shi family mansion is not an ordinary force. Their mansion must have an extremely powerful defense system around it. Therefore, to be able to break through the defense system of the Shi family and destroy the entire family without a sound, the person must be very powerful. It's very likely to be a grade 7 super evolved dragon. I think it's likely to be grade 8. Therefore, the rumors about the mysterious powerhouse became more and more exaggerated. In the end, it was said that the mysterious powerhouse was a grade 10 super evolved dragon. At the same time, these people also had a deeper understanding of Kong Hai's force. Kong Hai actually has such a powerhouse under him. If it's really a grade 10 super evolved dragon, why would he work for a grade 4 like Kong Hai? That's hard to say. Maybe they're just good friends. Maybe Kong Hai saved him before, and he's just returning the favor. Therefore, when we meet Lord Kong Hai in the future, we'd better be respectful. He's still calling him Lord Kong. He's probably going to inherit the position of Star-Lord soon. In fact, these people were right. A month later, Kong Hai officially announced that he would inherit the position of Star-Lord. In the 10,000 Dragons Star Zone, the position of Star-Lord was not officially appointed. It was held by the capable. The previous Star-Lord had died, and Kong Hai was the strongest among the remaining forces. Naturally, Kong Hai would be the Star-Lord. Moreover, due to his previous achievements, no one had any objections to him taking the position of Star-Lord. The entire Cloud Sea planet was talking about the strength of the Void Ocean and the strength of the hidden powerhouse. However, Kong Hai was the only one who knew that there was no hidden expert under him. Even if he ascended to the position of Star-Lord, there would always be 2 chairs behind him. If one day those 2 mysterious powerhouses appeared, he would not hesitate to hand over the position of Star-Lord to them. He had fought on a battlefield and gone through fire and water, so he valued his life more than anyone else. It wasn't that he was afraid of death, but that he cherished life. Although the position of Star-Lord was indeed very tempting, it was not worth mentioning compared to his life. At the same time, he sent people everywhere to seek talents. He had recruited a large number of talents from Cloud Sea Planet. Two teachers of Ocean of Clouds Academy had already resigned and been recruited by Kong Hai. Of course, Kong Hai had also invited Immerse several times. However, Immerse did not agree. Right now, he only wanted to quietly increase his strength and make a fortune. As for Star-Lord, the position of ruler and the struggle between the various factions, he did not want to get involved. On this day, Immerse finished teaching a few students in his class. Although it was called a class, it was actually Immerse telling the students stories. What kind of class could he teach? He had already taught the students everything he could. Even the second transformation of various dragons was enough for the students to learn for hundreds or even thousands of years. Therefore, every day if Immerse was in a good mood, he would go to the classroom and tell the students a story or two. His experiences from Earth to the Flaming Origin Continent and then to the Myriad Dragonstar region were far beyond the imagination of these dragons. Just one or two things could make them sigh in amazement. If he was in a bad mood, he would not even go to school. The dean of the academy did not dare to slight him. Moreover, the dean had personally said to him, "If you have something to do one day, you just have to let me know." This was equivalent to telling Immerse that if he wanted to come, he could come. If he did not want to, he just had to let me know. After all, the dean of the academy was only a rank 3 super evolved dragon, and Immerse was at least rank 5 or even rank 6 in the dean's opinion. Facing such an existence, he naturally did not dare to slight him. This morning, Immerse finished telling the story and was about to return his office. Suddenly, he heard a few students say, "The Star-Lord is here. The Star-Lord is here. Let's go take a look." Star-Lord? Didn't the Star-Lord die suddenly? Please, now that Lord Kong Hai has become the Star-Lord, when did your family get connected to the internet? So it's Star-Lord Kong Hai. I admire Lord Kong Hai the most. He fought 3 internal wars and 1 external war. Every time, he killed so many enemies that they trembled in fear. He is known as the ever-victorious general. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go take a look. In their excitement, many students ran toward the academy's gate. Immerse shook his head. What a bunch of inexperienced brats. In fact, it wasn't just these students. Many of the academy's instructors also ran toward the gate. After all, even though they were instructors of the Cloud Sea Academy, they had never seen the Star-Lord before. Now that they had the chance to see the Star-Lord in person, they naturally would not miss it. Even the dean went out to welcome him. He might be a rank 3 super evolved dragon, but the Star-Lord was a 4th grade. Naturally, he had to welcome him. Immerse was the only one in the entire academy who was still leisurely strolling along the tree-lined path, slowly walking towards his office. His only thought now was to improve his strength. As for his external living conditions, material conditions, and the like, he did not care. Thus, even if he met the Star-Lord, he did not care. What did it mean to be strong without desires? This was what it meant to be strong without desires. At the academy's gate, the instructors and students quickly lined up to welcome the arrival of Star-Lord Kong Hai. Kong Hai was a rather easygoing person. He greeted the dean, the instructors, and the students. The dean said with a smile, "Star-Lord, I didn't know you were coming. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." Kong Hai waved his hand. It's fine. Everyone go to your own things. I'm here today to visit Immerse, Instructor Immerse." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. The Star-Lord had just been appointed, and he was here to visit Instructor Immerse. However, after thinking about it, they understood. Kong Hai had recently been recruiting talents from all over the place. Immerse was able to help a student advance to grade 1 in just 10 days. Kong Hai naturally wanted to recruit such a genius. However, Kong Hai only sent one person to invite the other talents. Now, he was here to visit Instructor Immerse personally. This surprised everyone. Chapter 629. Under everyone's gaze, the new Star-Lord Kong Hai arrived in front of Immerse's office. Kong Hai's subordinate shouted, "Instructor Immerse, the Star-Lord is here to visit. Hurry up and welcome him." To everyone around, there was nothing wrong with this shout. After all, Kong Hai was the new Star-Lord. Although Immerse was powerful and had some special abilities, he was still just an instructor of the academy. It was already an honor for Kong Hai to visit Immerse personally. Shouldn't he come out to welcome him? However, the dean had other thoughts. He knew that Immerse's strength had most likely reached the 5th or 6th ranked Superflower Dragon. Under the premise that strength was respected in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, how could Immerse go out to welcome the Star Lord? As expected, Immerse didn't come out. All the instructors and students around felt that Immerse was a bit too much. However, Kong Hai glared at his subordinate. "Who told you to talk too much?" The subordinate immediately nodded and lowered his head. "I'm sorry, Star Lord. Don't apologize to me." "Apologize to Instructor Immo." Kong Hai's voice was slightly stern. The subordinate immediately cupped his fist towards Immerse's office. "I'm sorry, Instructor Immo. I was too rash and offended you. Please forgive me." Then, Kong Hai cupped his fist towards Immerse's office. "Instructor Immo, I'm the new Star Lord Kong Hai. Your subordinate has offended you. It's my fault for not disciplining him properly. I apologize to you here." When everyone saw this scene, each and every one of them was extremely shocked. A Star Lord apologizing to an instructor. Was there any justice in this world? Was there any law? One had to know that on a planet, the Star Lord was the law, and the Star Lord was the law. The Star Lord's face was greater than the sky. Although the strong were respected, generally speaking, the Star Lord was the strongest person on a planet. Even if the Star Lord made a mistake, he wouldn't admit it. Instead, his subordinate would apologize. Now, Kong Hai was the one who made a mistake. In the end, not only did his subordinate apologize, but he also apologized. Everyone knew that the new Star Lord was thirsty for talent, but there was no need for him to be so humble in front of Instructor Immo. What they didn't know was that Star Lord Kong Hai actually knew something. In Kong Hai's opinion, many things in this world were connected. This was his experience after living for over 10,000 years. In the past, Instructor Immo was able to help a student break through 1 or even 2 levels in 10 days. This was already an existence that subverted everyone's knowledge. Later on, 2 mysterious experts appeared and destroyed the entire Mingwei residence in a single night. There might be some kind of connection behind this. That was why Kong Hai was so polite to Immerse. Immerse's voice slowly came from inside the room. "Come in." Immerse had already plundered Kong Hai's memories. He knew Kong Hai's true thoughts. It had to be said that this old man who had lived for tens of thousands of years was really something. He could even see the connection between the two. He was indeed amazing. "Instructor Immo, I'll come in then." As Kong Hai spoke, he pushed open Immerse's door and entered his office. Behind Kong Hai, his 2 subordinates also wanted to enter, but Kong Hai stopped them with a look. The 2 subordinates immediately stopped in their tracks. They closed the door behind them. Kong Hai entered the room and once again cupped his fist to Immerse. "Instructor Immo, I came without an appointment. If I offended you, please forgive me." Immerse had a good impression of Kong Hai, although this person valued power too much. He went to the battlefield to kill enemies and made them tremble in fear. He was also courteous and thirsty for talents. These were all true. At the same time, this person was actually able to guess that he was related to the 2 mysterious experts. He was indeed quite capable. It was just that Kong Hai would never dream that he was the 2 mysterious experts. Immerse smiled faintly and said, "I've already said that I like freedom and don't like restrictions. Star-Lord Kong Hai, please go back." When Kong Hai heard this, he was even more certain of his guess. Most people would only call him Star Master when they saw him. Almost no one dared to call him by his name in front of him. Yet Instructor Immo added his name in front of the Star Lord, Kong Hai. It could be seen that either this person was extremely powerful or the faction behind him was extremely powerful. They were so powerful that they didn't care about his position as the Star Lord. Thinking of this, Kong Hai was secretly shocked. As expected, there was a high possibility that there was a connection between Instructor Immo and those 2 mysterious experts. Kong Hai continued, "If Instructor Mo isn't willing to work under me, you can stay in the academy. You can do whatever you want. I only ask that you put your name under me." I will give you the highest honorary position. Your monthly benefits will also be far better than others. It could be said that Kong Hai's attitude was very humble. However, Immerse still waved his hand. He couldn't be bothered to talk to Kong Hai anymore. Instead, he directly used dragon sense to transmit his voice. You don't have to keep the 2 seats behind your Star-Lord's seat. I won't sit there. When Kong Hai heard this, he was slightly stunned. Then, his expression changed drastically. He looked at Immerse in disbelief. The 2 mysterious experts who destroyed the Shi family are... Immerse shook his head. Not 2. These words couldn't be clearer. If Kong Hai couldn't even understand the meaning of these words, then he had lived for tens of thousands of years in vain. His knees immediately went soft, and he knelt in front of Immerse. Lord Immerse, Senior Immerse, I was blind. Please forgive me. He could already tell that the person in front of him was the one who destroyed the Shi family. In other words, he had both the time and space attributes, and one had to know that he could teach students of any other attribute. That meant that he had energy of any other attribute besides time and space. This was no longer something that could be described as a genius. Even a monster was far from enough. If one had to use a word to describe him, then it would be God. It was already very rare for an ordinary giant dragon to master 2 attributes. There had only been a few times in history for someone to master 3 attributes. And this instructor Immerse had mastered almost all attributes. If this wasn't a god, then what was? No wonder his attitude toward him was so. No wonder he didn't care even if he met the Star-Lord. Thinking of this, he hurriedly said, Lord Immerse, Senior Immerse, if you have any instructions in the future, just say the word. I will not refuse. By the way, if you want the position of Star-Lord, I will now announce to everyone that you are the Star-Lord of the Cloud Sea. Immerse couldn't help but smile and shake his head. Do you think I will be interested in a small Star-Lord of the Cloud Sea? Kong Hai thought about it and agreed. Why would a person comparable to a god care about a small Star-Lord position? Immerse knew that this guy actually compared him to a god through the public memory. He found it a little funny, but this was also good. Many things on the Cloud Sea would be easy to do in the future. Kong Hai, I know what you were thinking. I can tell you that I am not a god, but I am definitely more terrifying than you think. Kong Hai was stunned again. Then he lowered his head even more. Sure enough, this person was comparable to a god. He even knew what he was thinking clearly. But don't expose my identity for the time being. Kong Hai hurriedly replied, I will definitely not reveal a single word to anyone. If I reveal anything, I will be at your disposal. Immerse nodded in satisfaction and then asked, Kong Hai, are you willing to be my student? Chapter 630. Kong Hai, are you willing to be my disciple? Immerse asked a question that Kong Hai did not expect. Kong Hai was stunned when he heard this. An instructor of an academy wanted to take him, a Star-Lord, as his disciple. If others knew about this, they would think that this instructor was too arrogant. After all, theoretically speaking, a Star-Lord was the most powerful being on a planet. Who would have the right to take a Star-Lord as their disciple. However, Kong Hai was only stunned for a moment before he asked, Instructor Immerse, if I become your disciple, can I also advance by 1 grade? Of course. Immerse nodded slightly. However, it will take at least 10 days before you can advance by 1 grade. Kong Hai was overjoyed when he heard this. He had originally thought that Instructor Mo's ability to upgrade the giant dragons was only limited to those below super-evolved giant dragons. After all, it was extremely difficult for a super-evolved dragon to advance by 1 grade. If Instructor Immerse could really make him a super-evolved dragon advance by 1 rank, then he would be no different from a god. Then Kong Hai is willing to be Instructor Mo's disciple. As Kong Hai spoke, he bent down and bowed deeply to Immerse. Immerse slowly raised his hand and gestured for Kong Hai to rise. Come back in 10 days. I will help you advance by 1 grade. Kong Hai was overjoyed. It was important to note that he had been stuck as a 4th grade super-evolved dragon for thousands of years. How could he not be excited when he had the chance to break through 4th grade and reach 5th grade. There is one thing you need to pay attention to, Immerse said. Our relationship will be kept a secret for now. Yes, instructor Immo Kong Hai was slightly surprised. Most people would be more than happy to have a relationship with a Star-Lord. However, instructor Immo kept such a low profile that he did not understand. However, he did not ask too much. After all, it was their first meeting. It would not be good if he asked too much and instructor Immo would dislike him. All right, you can go back, Immerse said. Kong Hai nodded. Then I will take my leave. As he spoke, he respectfully left the room. The people outside did not expect their Star-Lord to be so respectful in front of Immerse. He did not even dare to turn around as he left. Instead, he retreated step by step. When the crowd outside saw the Star-Lord leave, they were all surprised. No matter how much the Star-Lord thirsted for talents and treated them with respect, there was no need for him to be so respectful to teacher Immo. But they couldn't ask too many questions. After Kong Hai left Immerse's room and closed the door, he turned around and said to everyone, If there's nothing else in the future, don't disturb teacher Immo. His subordinates lowered their heads and said, Yes, master. When the instructors and students in the academy saw this, they were very surprised. Even if teacher Immo could help people advance by one stage, there was no need to be so exaggerated. One had to know that in their hearts, Kong Hai was a war hero, an existence that could strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. No matter how powerful Immerse was, he was only a teacher of an academy. In their hearts, Immerse's position was far below Kong Hai's. Now, Kong Hai was so respectful to Immerse, which really confused them. After Kong Hai left, Immerse's days became peaceful again. However, the instructors and students in the academy were much more respectful to Immerse than before. After all, if the Star-Lord was so respectful to teacher Immo, how could they not be respectful? The dean didn't dare to assign any work to Immerse. Immerse became even more idle. Other than telling 2 stories to his students every day, he had nothing else to do in the academy. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Star-Lord Kong Hai came to the academy again. But this time, he didn't come with great fanfare. He came alone. After all, every time a student went to visit a teacher, he would attract a group of people with great fanfare. That would be too outrageous. Star-Lord Kong Hai greeted the dean in advance. After the dean confirmed that Immerse was in the academy, Kong Hai entered the academy. Moreover, he disguised himself a little, so many students couldn't recognize him. He came to Immerse's office. Teacher Immo, I'm here, Kong Hai said. Come in. Immerse's voice, which seemed to always be calm and collected, came from inside. Kong Hai entered the room and took out dozens of gifts from storage space. Teacher Immo, these are my gifts to you. Immerse glanced at them. Most of these things were not of much use to him now. Kong Hai observed Immerse's expression. When he saw that Immerse didn't seem to be interested in these things, he could only make up his mind. Teacher Immo, I also have a lightspeed spaceship. I think with your status, you must travel between the stars often. This lightspeed spaceship should be very suitable. Immerse's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He had seen lightspeed spaceships in the information before. The maximum speed of this spaceship could reach 110 lightspeed. That was equivalent to more than 30,000 kilometers per second. This was much faster than Immerse's current teleportation speed. If he had such a spaceship, he could reach other planets in just 10 minutes or even a few minutes. Thinking of this, he nodded. Well, this is indeed useful to me. Then I'll reluctantly accept it. Kong Hai suddenly felt a pinch in his heart. He had spent a lot of money to buy this lightspeed spaceship. However, Kong Hai was not a stingy person. Moreover, his teacher could help him advance by 1 level today. Compared to the advancement, the spaceship was not worth mentioning. Kong Hai said to Immerse, Teacher, my storage space is too small to fit the spaceship, so you'll have to come with me to get the spaceship later. Immerse nodded. Cultivate once, and let me see. Kong Hai Dongji sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. Immerse had the Void Dragon's 9 transformations. The Void Dragon's 9 transformations was the culmination of all space attribute cultivation methods. Therefore, he could easily see through Kong Hai's problem. When you cultivate to the second cycle, use all your energy to attack the Sihai acupoint instantly. Hearing this, Kong Hai muttered in his heart. In the past, his Sihai acupoint had been injured. Every time he cultivated, when the energy passed through the Sihai blood, he would feel a huge pain. Later, an expert gave him some pointers. He said that when the energy passed through the Sihai acupoint, it would be reduced by half. As expected, every time his energy passed through the Sihai acupoint, it would be reduced by half, and he could cultivate normally. Why did Teacher Mo want him to use all his energy to attack the Sihai acupoint now? However, since Teacher Mo had already said so, he could only do as he was told. Soon, when he cultivated to the second cycle, he used all his energy to attack the Sihai acupoint. Suddenly, a piercing pain came from his heart. Beads of sweat the size of beans on his forehead instantly poured down. When he cultivated to the 15th cycle, the pain almost made him faint. Fortunately, he had experienced countless battles and suffered countless injuries. He gritted his teeth and endured it. Finally, after 5 minutes, the pain seemed to have reached its peak. Just as he could not take it anymore, boom, a wave of energy seemed to spread out from his limbs and bones. Chapter 631. 631, The Power of Star-Lord. Star-Lord Kong Hai followed Mo Shi's instructions and cultivated for 81 cycles. The pain in his heart started to spread throughout his body, spreading to his limbs and bones in an instant. Every pore and every cell in his body seemed to be enduring immense pain. It was as if 10,000 ants were gnawing at his flesh, as if 10,000 needles were piercing his heart. Even though Kong Hai was a Star-Lord, even though he had lived for tens of thousands of years and experienced countless pain and agony, even so, he still felt as if he was better off dead than alive under this immense pain. In truth, this pain only lasted for a mere 10 seconds. However, these 10 seconds felt like 10 years to him. One had to admit that Kong Hai was a true man of iron and blood, tempered through war and blood. Even though he was enduring such immense pain, he gritted his teeth and didn't make a single sound. His consciousness seemed to be fading away amidst this immense pain. Just as he was about to faint from the pain, boom, a loud explosion seemed to ring out from within his body. The next second, energy flowed freely through his meridians like a flood that had broken through a dam. As this energy flowed through his meridians, the pain in every pore of his body finally disappeared. Every cell in his body seemed to be breathing happily. An indescribable sense of comfort spread throughout his body. He had experienced this feeling many times before. He only felt this when he was advancing. He opened his eyes. His entire body was drenched. Even the ground beneath him was covered in a layer of water. It was enough to see how much pain he had just endured. In contrast to the immense pain he had just experienced was the immense pleasure he felt now. He had finally advanced to 5th grade Super Evolved Dragon. He hadn't advanced for tens of thousands of years. He had thought that he would never be able to advance even if he lived for another 10,000 years. With his talent, reaching 4th grade Super Evolved Dragon was the limit for him. Who would have thought that he would advance by a grade in just 5 minutes under Instructor Mo's guidance? Instructor Mo was truly a god. At the thought of this, Kong Hai hurriedly got up and knelt before Mo Shi. I'm afraid I won't be able to repay Instructor Mo's kindness in this lifetime. If Instructor Mo needs my help in the future, feel free to ask. Kong Hai will not refuse. After becoming a super evolved giant dragon, every level up was equivalent to an extra 10,000 years of lifespan. Therefore, Mo Shi not only allowed him to advance by 1 level, but also allowed him to live for another 10,000 years. How could he repay such a great favor? Mo Shi smiled and shook his head. There will be a time when you can repay me. Kong Hai heard this. He nodded heavily. Teacher Mo, if there's anything I can use you for, Kong Hai will definitely not refuse. At this point, Kong Hai's loyalty to Immerse could be said to be 100%. After all, Kong Hai was the lord of a planet. If an interstellar war broke out, how many dragons would die under Kong Hai's command? And these dragons were all counted into Immerse's dragon slaying value. Just thinking about it made him King happy. If a war broke out, wouldn't he be able to evolve into a rank 10 super evolved colossal dragon in minutes? Perhaps it would be easy for the ancient dragons as well. At the same time, Immerse also thought of a way to increase his strength quickly. He said to Kong Hai, if there are people in your army who want to improve their strength, tell them to come over. Just like the others before, I guarantee that each of them will be able to advance by one level within 10 days. Although Immerse already had many students now, these students were basically still studying in the academy. None of them could really join the army. Even the 6th grade students were still a few years away from graduation. It would take a few more years for them to quickly develop their combat strength and increase their dragon slaying value. Therefore, Immerse thought of the colossal dragons in the army. Although there hadn't been any major wars in the Cloud Sea Star in the past 2 years, small rebellions kept happening, and there were also dragon bandits and the like. Therefore, the army had been very busy. If those colossal dragons in the army became his disciples, then he would be able to earn dragon slaying value every day. Kong Hai nodded. Teacher Immerse, I'll ask my Imperial Guards to come over tomorrow. Immerse shook his head. There's no need for the Imperial Guards for now. I think those soldiers who are fighting on the front lines every day need to improve their strength as soon as possible. This way, their lives will be more secure. Kong Hai thought to himself, not only does a magister have powerful strength, but he also has a compassionate heart. No wonder he has such strength while I'm only the Lord of the Star. Yes, then I'll order the soldiers on the Eastern Front to come back in batches so that you can improve your strength. Now, there are large and small battles breaking out on the Eastern Front almost every day. They need to improve their strength the most. Immerse nodded, then slowly waved his hand. Okay, go. On the way back, Kong Hai issued an order. Asked the soldiers on the Eastern Front to come back in batches to accept Teacher Mo's favor and improve their strength. On the Cloud Sea Star, the government wasn't the only power. In addition to the government, there were also some Hulong. These Hulong were originally the masters of the Cloud Sea Star. They were the natives of the Cloud Sea Star. Since the government sent colossal dragons to the Cloud Sea Star tens of thousands of years ago, these Hulong's status on the Cloud Sea Star was not as good as before. They were even treated as slaves. Therefore, many Hulong began to resist. Of course, their resistance was quickly suppressed by the Star-Lord. After several major wars, these Hulong had suffered countless casualties. However, they didn't accept their fate. Instead, they escaped into the forest and fought guerrilla warfare with the government. Because the Cloud Sea Star was huge and the government's army was limited, it was impossible to completely destroy them. Therefore, the Star-Lord ordered the colossal dragons to build a defense line in the east, south, west, and north. They were called the east, south, west, and north lines. Nowadays, the Hulong on the south, west, and north lines rarely showed up. Only the Hulong on the Eastern Front were still active and would attack the colossal dragons on the Eastern Front from time to time. At the Eastern Front, when the general guarding the Eastern Front saw the message from the Star-Lord, he couldn't help but frown. The Eastern Front was so busy and they were short on manpower. Where would they find the time to send people back to improve their strength? Wasn't the so-called improvement of strength just training? They were going to kill Hulong every day. Why would they need training? This new Star-Lord was King Bulsh Ting. But there was no other way. Since it was the Star-Lord's order, he could only send some people back first. Therefore, he sent more than 1,000 soldiers to Cloud Sea City. The Star-Lord had ordered at least 5,000 people in each batch, but he only sent 1,000. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied with the Star-Lord. At the same time, he thought that since he was guarding the Eastern Front, no matter how dissatisfied the Star-Lord was with him, the Star-Lord wouldn't dare to touch him. That was why he was so brazen. About 2 days later, these soldiers arrived at Cloud Sea City. At the same time, the Star-Lord Kong Hai invited Immerse over. When these soldiers saw that Kong Hai was so respectful to Immerse, they were a little surprised. Who exactly was this person? Soon, those who were well-informed found out that Immerse was just a teacher in an academy. They couldn't help but feel disdain. Since when did a teacher in an academy dare to show off in front of the Star-Lord? Chapter 632. There was a huge martial arts arena in Cloud Sea City. The martial art practice field was 10 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide. This was the official martial arts arena. Usually, when there were some major celebrations or competitions between dragons, it would be held in this arena. Now, the 1,000 soldiers were lined up neatly on the arena. Of course, since they were not in their dragon forms, the 1,000 of them looked very small when standing on this huge arena. Star-Lord Kong Hai lectured these 1,000 people. Do you want to improve your strength? Do you want to become stronger in 10 days? Now is your chance. You must seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The soldiers below were all silent. Kong Hai was slightly displeased. Although Kong Hai was once called the god of war and a hero by them, a series of policies implemented by Kong Hai since he became the Star-Lord were disadvantageous to the army. Therefore, they were a little disgusted. In fact, Kong Hai had been in the army for thousands of years and knew that the Dragon Army had many bad habits. These policies he implemented were just to make the army change these bad habits and win the hearts of the people. However, this made the veterans who had been in the army for thousands or even tens of thousands of years very uncomfortable. Therefore, they were naturally dissatisfied with Kong Hai. Kong Hai was already well aware of this, but he did not care. He still had to reform what was needed. At this moment, a figure quickly flew over from the distant horizon. When he arrived in front of Kong Hai, he slowly landed. Kong Hai cupped his fist to the person and said, "Mentor Mo, you're here." Immerse's subordinates were surprised to see their Star-Lord being so respectful to a mentor of an academy. At the same time, they were also disdainful. Their disdain was not only for Kong Hai, but also for Immerse. What ability did this little mentor have to make Kong Hai so respectful? Kong Hai was too arrogant. He was actually so respectful to a mentor of the academy. Kong Hai stretched out his hand to the soldiers and said to Immerse, "Mentor Mo, you may begin." Immerse nodded. Then he said to the 1,000 soldiers, "I know what you're thinking. A mere mentor of the academy is being so respectful to the Star-Lord. What a scandal. You're very disdainful of me and the Star-Lord." As soon as he said that, the soldiers below looked at each other. Could this guy read minds? At the same time, they were secretly shocked. If they had such disdain for the Star-Lord, how would the Star-Lord deal with them? As expected, Star-Lord Kong Hai's face darkened. "I can understand your disdain for me, but you must respect Mentor Mo 100%. If I find out who disrespects Mentor Mo, you know what will happen to you." Hearing this, the soldiers became even more curious. What was Teacher Mo's identity? The Master of Stars would rather be looked down upon than be looked down upon by others. Immerse glanced at the 1,000+ people. "Now, I'll teach you a spell. It's very simple. Follow me and learn for 10 days. After 10 days, I guarantee that you will break through to the First Order." Hearing Immerse's words, none of the soldiers believed him. They had been on the battlefield for many years. They only believed in life and death, and did not believe in anything else. They had been cultivating for so many years without being able to level up. Now, this guy was actually boasting that he could help all of them level up in 10 days. If this wasn't bragging, then what was? Immerse continued. "What I want to teach you is very simple." As he spoke, he took out 1,000 cards that he had asked his students to make. The cards were none other than the multiplication table. There was no multiplication table in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. Immerse demonstrated and recited it. 1 1 equals 1. 1 2 equals 2. 1 3 equals 3. 1 4 equals 4. 9 9 81. The dragons were dumbfounded by this scene. Dragons had a long lifespan, and their memories were not bad. It was not difficult for them to memorize so many multiplication tables. What surprised them was, what was this so-called mentor doing? You said you wanted to help us improve our strength, but in the end, you had to memorize this damn thing. Even Star-Lord Kong Hai was dumbfounded. What was the mentor doing? He didn't teach me like this when he taught me before. However, Kong Hai quickly calmed himself down. Instructor Mo was a senior expert. His thoughts were not something that Kong Hai could fathom. Actually, Immerse's thoughts were very simple. If he taught all these dragons the 9 dragon transformations one by one, it would be a waste of time. He might as well teach them the multiplication table. It would save time and effort. Anyway, the system did not teach the dragons anything. As long as he taught them a random skill for 10 days, they would be recognized by the system as his disciple. Then, Immerse placed the 1,000 multiplication tables on the stone platform in front of them and asked the dragons to come and take them. Although the dragon warriors were unwilling, they still came forward to take them. After all, the Star-Lord was standing there. Although they were dissatisfied, they did not dare to disobey. After all the dragons had taken the multiplication tables, Kong Hai said, "Start reading now." The giant dragons looked at each other. Although they felt embarrassed, they still began to read it one after another. Thus, a scene like this appeared in the square. 1,000 dragon warriors stood in a square formation and chanted the multiplication formula in unison. 1 1 equals 1, 1 2 equals 2, 1 3 equals 3, 9 9 81. After all the dragons finished reading, Immerse nodded. Very good. Now, you can go back and recite the multiplication table by yourselves. I'll give you 10 days. After 10 days, those who have recited it can come here to find me. I'll help each of you improve by 1 level. Of course, this is voluntary. If you don't want to recite it or improve your strength, you don't have to come. But I have to remind you that you only have 1 chance. If you miss this chance, I won't help any of you improve your strength. The dragons scratched their heads in confusion. Seeing that they were still not dispersing, Kong Hai shouted, "Disperse." After all, he was once a soldier. Ordinary people could not understand his aura. The soldiers dispersed and left one after another under his roar. Kong Hai waited for those baffled soldiers to leave before he turned to Immerse and asked expectantly, "Instructor Immerse, what did you ask them to recite just now? Can you teach me?" He looked as eager as Sun Wukong in the cave of the slanting moon and 3 stars, asking Patriarch Subhoodie for the method of immortality. Immerse smiled faintly and shook his head. Everyone has their own cultivation method. You can't learn theirs. Kong Hai was a little anxious. "No, instructor. There are so many of them. If they can learn mine, why can't they?" Immerse smiled, but did not answer. He left. Kong Hai was left standing there in a daze. He looked in the direction where the soldiers had dispersed, and his heart was filled with envy for those soldiers. That multiplication table must be a very powerful cultivation method or skill. Why can't Instructor Mo teach me? Chapter 633. That night, after the soldiers returned home, some went to the restaurant to drink, some went to visit relatives and friends they had not seen in a long time. Some went to the brothels to admire the flowers. They had been on the Eastern Front for so long, fighting to the death every day, and rarely had time to enjoy themselves. This time, they had finally arrived at Cloud Sea City, so they had to have fun. Obviously, most of the soldiers did not take Immerse's word seriously. Only a very small number of soldiers really memorized the multiplication formula. In a military tent, a soldier with a dull face was reciting the multiplication formula. 4 7 28, 5 7 35, 6 7 6 7 40. A soldier outside who had just returned from the brothels could not help but laugh when he saw this. "Shuang Feng, it's fine that you're usually so dumb, but today you're actually memorizing this troublesome multiplication formula. I really don't know how someone as dull as you survived on the Eastern Front until now. I, Liao Shan, really admire you." Shuang Feng smiled bitterly and said, "I'm usually not good at anything, and I'm always looked down on. This time, I finally have a chance to improve my strength, so of course I have to seize it. Ha 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 ha. You really believe in dullards. Liao Shan laughed as he shook his head and went to sleep in his tent. Shuang Feng watched Liao Shan enter the tent and stared at him for a moment. Then, he lowered his head, opened the multiplication formula table, and continued to recite. 4728, 5735, 6767, 40. There were less than 50 people who really memorized the multiplication formula like Shuang Feng. 10 days was not a long time, but it was not short either. In these 10 days, Shuang Feng and the other 40 people had already memorized the multiplication formula. They could even recite it backwards. They were all giant dragons who were usually weak in the army and were not valued. The other dragons did not take the multiplication formula seriously at all. They just ate, drank, and played every day. When Kong Hai saw this, he cursed in his heart. The multiplication formula was such a profound technique, and the teacher could teach it to these guys, but they did not cherish it. He wanted to force these soldiers to learn it, but since the teacher said that it was up to them whether they learned it or not, he could not go against the teacher's wishes. At noon on the 10th day, on the huge training field, the more than 40 soldiers who had memorized the multiplication formula couldn't wait any longer. They lined up neatly and waited for Teacher Mo. As for the other warriors, they were still indulging in debauchery. Anyway, that Teacher Mo had said that it was up to them whether they wanted to learn or not. It didn't matter if they didn't want to learn. At noon, Immerse finally appeared. Kong Hai followed closely behind Immerse. When Kong Hai saw that there were less than 50 people, he was instantly enraged. These little bastards are really rebelling against them. I'll go and get them all. After all, Kong Hai had been in the army for thousands of years. In his anger, all the vulgar words came out. Immerse waved his hand and said faintly, "There's no need for that. This matter was originally voluntary. They were not forced to do it." Kong Hai could only nod. Yes, Instructor Mo. All the soldiers were looking at Immerse on the stage expectantly. Immerse jumped off the stage and came in front of one of the soldiers. "What's your name?" "Shuang Feng. Li Shuang Feng." The soldier was so nervous that he stuttered a little. Immerse said with an amiable smile, "Shuang Feng, let me see how you do it." Shuang Feng immediately sat down cross-legged and began to circulate the energy in his body. A moment later, he completed 81 circulations. Immerse nodded. Overall, it's not bad. However, when the energy passes through the Tianwei point, you must rush through it slowly. Otherwise, the impact of the energy on the Tianwei point will be too great. The effect of the cultivation will be greatly reduced. Try to cultivate again. Remember, you must slow down when you pass through the Tianwei point. The soldier was very confused. In the past, when his father taught him how to cultivate, he said that when passing through the Tianwei point, he must rush through it quickly to stimulate the cells and meridians in his body. Why was this teacher completely different from what his father said? However, when he saw how respectful the Star Master was to this teacher, he didn't dare to have any more doubts. In any case, he didn't get much out of his normal cultivation. He was only a rank 2 evolved dragon. Moreover, it seemed that he had no hope of breaking through to rank 2 in this lifetime. He might as well try this method. Thinking of this, he began to cultivate according to Immerse's instructions. When the energy passed through the Tianwei point, he didn't rush through it violently like before. Instead, he slowed it down. Just this time, he suddenly felt a sense of comfort in his limbs and bones that he hadn't felt before. After 2 circulations, he had an answer to his doubts. Sure enough, this teacher was right. After 81 circulations, he suddenly felt a surge of energy rushing through his body. All the meridians in his body had an indescribable sense of comfort. It was also at this time that the energy in his body suddenly spread in all directions. Fortunately, after thousands of years of cultivation, he was very experienced in controlling energy. He didn't let the energy spread out of his body. Then a second time, a third time. The energy spread out 3 times in a row. Even the surrounding soldiers widened their eyes in shock. Although Shuang Feng's energy didn't spread out of his body, they could feel the impact of the energy. In the past, this kind of energy impact would only happen when breaking through. Shuang Feng had broken through, and he had broken through 3 ranks in a row. Sure enough, Shuang Feng opened his eyes, and his eyes shone brightly. He looked at himself in disbelief, from his feet to his hands, and then from his hands to his feet. His tone was extremely excited. "Teacher Imo, I broke through 3 ranks in a row." Hiss, hiss, hiss. The sound of the soldiers drawing in a breath of cold air could be heard one after another. Shuang Feng hadn't been able to advance a single grade in the past 1,000 years. Now he had advanced 3 grades in just a short 5 minutes of cultivation. This was too exaggerated. Amidst the shock, these soldiers were filled with anticipation. Fortunately, they didn't indulge in debauchery like the other soldiers. Fortunately, they seized this opportunity. Immerse nodded at Shuang Feng, then looked at another soldier. Next. Soon, a few hours later, all of the 40-odd warriors had leveled up. The least advanced by 2 grades, and the most advanced by 4 grades. Kong Hai, who was watching from the side, was dumbfounded, advancing to 4th grade in a single cultivation session. This was even more terrifying than the students of the academy. However, after some thought, he understood the reason behind this. These soldiers had been cultivating for a much longer time than the students of the academy. Most of them had been cultivating for at least 1,000 years. The energy accumulated in their bodies, as well as the tempering of their cells and meridians, was naturally not something that the students could compare to. With Teacher Mo's guidance, their breakthroughs had come naturally. Advancing to 4th grade was unexpected, but it was also within reason. Chapter 634. Under Immerse's guidance, the 40-plus dragon warriors quickly broke through. Moreover, Immerse's guidance this time used the time skill. Apart from the first double Feng, the rest of the dragon warriors basically compressed their time. What was supposed to be 5 minutes was actually just a few seconds. After breaking through, the dragon warriors cupped their fists towards Immerse and knelt on one knee. "We will never forget Teacher Mo's great kindness. We will never forget Teacher Mo's great kindness," the dragon warriors said gratefully. Some of them had broken through 2 ranks, while others had broken through 4 ranks. If not for Immerse, they probably wouldn't even be able to break through 1 rank. In this lifetime, he would die at his current level. Moreover, the significance of Immerse helping them break through was not only an increase in their strength, but also an extension of their lifespan. They were all evolved dragons. Every time they advanced a rank, their lifespan would be extended by 1,000 years. In other words, Immerse only used a few seconds to extend each of their lifespan by at least 2,000 years. Such a great kindness naturally made them excited and moved. One of the evolved dragons said, "Teacher Imo, if you have any use for us in the future, please don't hesitate to ask." The rest of the dragons nodded. Immerse waved his hand and said, "Brothers, you have been fighting day and night on the Eastern Front, using your lives to protect our safety. It's my honor to be able to do something for you. How could I dare to ask for anything in return?" This made the dragon warriors have a deeper understanding of Immerse. At the same time, they admired Immerse even more in their hearts. They originally thought that this teacher who could help them break through 2 ranks in a short time was a senior expert who would be high and mighty. They didn't expect this senior expert to treat them like this. It must be known that in today's society, although they were fighting on the front lines every day, not many dragons respected them. Because with the development of society, the dragons have become more materialistic and more materialistic. The dragons no longer worshipped heroes, but those rich bosses. And now, this archmage was treating them with such respect. How could they not be moved? Immerse waved his hand and said, "It's already late. It's getting late. Everyone, go back and rest. If you want, you can stay here for another 3 to 5 days before returning to the Eastern Front." The soldiers cupped their fists towards Immerse. "Thank you, Teacher Mo that night, Shuang Feng was cultivating in his tent. Li Aoshan returned from outside. He opened Shuang Feng's tent and glanced inside. Seeing that Shuang Feng was still cultivating, he couldn't help but shake his head. I say, Shuang Feng, don't you find it boring? Look at this colorful world. It's so much better than our boring Eastern Front. It's not easy to come here. Don't you know how to go out and have some fun? However, just as he said this, he suddenly froze. This was because he could sense from Shuang Feng's cultivation that there was something wrong with Shuang Feng's aura. It seemed to be many times stronger than before. He carefully sensed it again and asked in surprise, Shuang Feng, you've broken through? After both of them had completed 81 cycles of cultivation, they slowly opened their eyes. I've broken through. Li Aoshan was stunned again. But that's not right. You were only a rank 2 super evolved dragon before. Even if you broke through, you'd only be rank 3. I'm rank 4. Why does your aura seem to be stronger than mine now? Shuang Feng shook his head and replied in embarrassment. No, I'm rank 5 now. What? Li Aoshan shook his head repeatedly. He couldn't believe it, or rather, he didn't want to believe it. When he went out this morning, this guy was only a rank 2 super evolved dragon. When he came back at night, he was rank 5. In less than 12 hours, he broke through to rank 3. However, judging from Shuang Feng's aura, he was indeed more than 10 times stronger than himself, a rank 4. Thinking about how this idiot Shuang Feng usually didn't know how to deceive people, he must be telling the truth. However, this guy broke through 3 levels consecutively. What's there to be ashamed of? This made Li Aoshan even more shocked. F***CK, Shuang Feng, even a blockhead like you can be enlightened one day. Tell me, how did you break through? Shuang Feng smiled and shook his head. If I were to cultivate by myself, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to break through even if I died. It was Teacher Mo who helped me. Magus? Which Magus? Li Aoshan was a little confused. Previously, he didn't pay much attention to Mo, sure. He had only met him once 10 days ago. At that time, he only knew that he was a teacher and didn't pay attention to his surname. In the past 10 days, he had been indulging in wine and women. He had long forgotten about this so-called teacher. It's the teacher Mo who taught us the multiplication table. Shuang Feng, are you sure you're not joking? Li Aoshan still felt that Shuang Feng was joking. That bastard teacher? Shui Shuang Feng, you're playing with me. Li Aoshan knew that Shuang Feng never lied. However, he couldn't believe it. He didn't want to believe it. What he didn't want to believe wasn't that Shuang Feng had broken through 3 levels under that teacher's guidance. It was that he didn't want to believe that he had missed a great opportunity. Shuang Feng naturally didn't know what he was thinking. Instead, he said seriously, no, it was instructor Mo who guided me. He first let me practice it once, then guided me to practice it once. Then I broke through. Moreover, I only broke through 3 ranks. At this point, Shuang Feng lowered his head in shame. Brother Jean broke through to the 4th level. Shuang Feng felt a little dizzy when he heard this. He kept shaking his head. No, I don't believe it. How could someone break through to the 4th level consecutively? This is definitely fake. That teacher is just playing a trick on you. At this moment, another warrior walked in. Shuang Feng, has your cultivation stabilized? I broke through to the 3rd level and just stabilized my cultivation. Speaking of which, that Brother Jean is really a ruthless person. He broke through to the 4th level consecutively and stabilized his cultivation long ago. It seems that our talent is still lacking compared to his. When Li Aoshan heard this, he felt his vision go dark. At the same time, there were nearly 1,000 other people who felt the same way. The entire camp was practically boiling. After hearing about the experiences of these 40 warriors, they were all filled with regret. Teacher Mo is a truly capable dragon. We were simply too stupid. We missed a great opportunity. Fortunately, we are still in Cloud Sea City. Early tomorrow morning, we will go beg Teacher Mo and apologize to him. These dragons naively thought that Mo sure would give them a chance. This was because they heard from the 40 warriors that Teacher Mo was a very nice person. Not only did he help them break through, but he also didn't take a single cent. In particular, he was very respectful to the dragon warriors. Therefore, at 6 o'clock the next morning, these 1,000 people had already gathered together and headed to Immerse's residence. Lakeside Villa. Chapter 635. The next day was a Sunday. Early in the morning, Immerse had yet to wake up. The 1,000 dragon warriors had already gathered at the plaza outside Immerse's lakeside villa. However, in order not to offend Immerse, they did not approach Immerse's villa. Instead, they sent a clever dragon warrior to ask around in front of Immerse's villa. The dragon warrior was called Shui Wugen. When he arrived at the villa's entrance, he saw a young man practicing his skills by the lakeside. He could not help but feel happy as he approached the young man. "May I ask if you know Teacher Mo?" The young man was naturally Lei Ren. He sized the guy up and down. He did not look like a student who was here to learn. He asked with some doubt, "Why are you looking for Teacher Mo?" Shui Wugen was also a smart person. He could tell at a glance that Lei Ren and Teacher Mo's relationship was not shallow. Thus, he greeted him with a warm smile. "Hello, we're dragon warriors from the Eastern Front. We are here to cultivate under Teacher Mo's orders." Lei Ren had heard a little about them. His face immediately turned cold, and he shook his head. "What do you take Teacher Mo for? Do you know how many people on Cloud Sea Planet are begging Teacher Mo to take them as his disciples? How many people have brought gifts to ask Teacher Mo to be their master? Now, Teacher Mo is kind enough to teach you for free without taking a single cent. In the end, you don't even appreciate it. Don't worry, Teacher Mo will not give you a second chance." When Shui Wugen heard this, his heart sank. However, he did not give up. That was a chance to advance to rank 2, or even rank 4. He could live for 2,000 or even 4,000 years. How could he give up just like that? He still greeted Lei Ren with a smile. "Previously, we were blind. We're not good people. Now, we know we were wrong." Lei Ren sneered. "Some mistakes can only be made once in a lifetime. There is no second chance." Shui Wugen still had a humble smile on his face. "Brother, please make an exception and inform Teacher Mo. Even if he refuses, we want to hear it from Teacher Mo himself." Lei Ren snorted. "Teacher Mo is busy every day. He works until midnight. He still hasn't woken up." In truth, Immerse had indeed only gone to bed in the middle of the night, but he had been busy with Happy for half the night. Of course, with his current strength, even if he was tossed and turned in the middle of the night, he would still be energetic if he wanted to wake up early. However, what was the point of waking up early? He could not think of a reason to wake up early. Shui Wugen cupped his fists towards Lei Ren. "Many thanks, brother. In that case, we will wait for Teacher Mo to wake up." Therefore, Shui Wugen retreated and returned to the plaza. The soldiers in the square couldn't wait any longer. "How is it? Have you seen Mentor Mo? Did Instructor Mo agree? I heard that this Teacher Mo is a very good person. He won't disagree, right?" Shui Wugen frowned and shook his head slightly. Teacher Mo hasn't woken up yet. However, that person should be his disciple. From his attitude, it seems that Teacher Mo isn't too happy. The other giant dragons looked at each other, and one of them said in relief, "As the saying goes, it's easy to get rid of the king of hell, but it's hard to deal with the little demons. Some fellows just rely on their master's power to show off. Let's see Mentor Mo first. Then we'll wait here for Teacher Mo to wake up." If the soldiers at the front line saw the current performance of these people, they would be shocked. One must know that many of these soldiers had very fiery tempers. They would often attack at the slightest disagreement. Now that they had suffered such humiliation in front of Teacher Mo, not only did they not have the slightest intention of retaliating, they even looked very humble. When it was around noon, Immerse finally woke up. After eating the breakfast that Lei Ren sent over, Immerse poured himself a cup of tea and went to the lakeside. He enjoyed the beautiful scenery of the lakeside while drinking his tea. "Brother Mo, have you seen those giant dragon warriors? They came early in the morning, intending to apologize to you." Although Lei Ren didn't like the attitude of these giant dragon warriors towards Immerse, Whether or not to teach them still depended on Immerse's opinion. He couldn't make the decision for Immerse. Immerse didn't even look at those giant dragon warriors. He drank a mouthful of tea and said, "Today's tea is not bad." His meaning was very clear. There was no need to bother about them. Leyrun immediately nodded. "Brother Immo, do you have any plans for today?" Immo sure laughed. "Even if there is, it is my plan. As for you, you should cultivate well, young man." Although Leyrun couldn't go with Immerse, he still nodded. "And, big brother Immo, I'll listen to you." Then, he entered the courtyard and returned to his room to cultivate. This was completely different from his previous image as a hedonistic son. In the past, Leyrun couldn't sit still after cultivating for 3 to 5 minutes. But ever since he met Immerse, he would cultivate for at least 5 hours a day. He would even cultivate for 2 to 3 days at a time. From afar, Shui Wugen saw Immerse come out. At the same time, he saw the person talking to Immerse. He knew that Leyrun had already told Immerse about their situation, and Immerse didn't even glance in their direction. This was enough to show Immerse's attitude. Thinking of this, Shui Wugen's heart sank. But even so, he couldn't give up. He still called over 10 smarter warriors to come to the lakeside villa with him. They came to Immerse and knelt down on one knee in front of Immerse. "Mentor Immo, we were blind. Please forgive us. Mentor Immo, we offended you previously. If you want to punish us, we will accept it. Mentor Immo, we were wrong. We were so wrong. Now, we know that we were wrong. Mentor Immo, I memorized the multiplication table last night. Please enlighten me." However, Immerse didn't pay any attention to them from beginning to end. "What a joke. A few days ago, I took the initiative to teach you, but you treated my things like dog shit. Now, seeing that the 40-plus giant dragons had improved, they pounced on me again." Immerse hated such snobbish people the most. No matter what they said at the side, Immerse paid no attention to them. After he finished tasting the tea, he directly soared into the sky and flew towards the distance, quickly disappearing into the horizon. The dragon warriors looked at each other when they saw this. However, they didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. After all, they were in the wrong first. Moreover, Mentor Immo could really help a giant dragon advance to 4th grade in just a few minutes. This was enough to show Mentor Immo's strength. Moreover, even the Star-Lord respected Mentor Immo. It was obvious how powerful and influential Mentor Immo was. That was why they didn't dare to complain in front of Immerse. "What do we do now?" one of the dragon warriors asked. "Wait. We wait until we die. Yes, we won't leave until Mentor Immo agrees." Chapter 636. Immerse strolled around for an entire day. With his current ability, he could already reach 1% of the speed of light. He couldn't go anywhere. Within a day, he could travel through the entire Cloud Sea planet and hundreds of nearby planets. Actually, he didn't do anything serious for the day. He looked at the sea of clouds, enjoyed the volcanic eruptions, and witnessed a tsunami in the middle of the sea. Then he had a big meal on a floating island in the sea. Seeing that it was getting late, he returned to the lakeside villa. When he returned to the entrance of the lakeside villa, the nearly 1,000 dragon warriors were still in the square not far from the lakeside villa. It was obvious that they had been here the entire day without eating or drinking. When they saw Immerse coming from afar, they all stood up straight. When Immerse landed in front of the lakeside villa, Shui Wugen and the 9 clever dragon warriors all rushed over. "Instructor Immo, Instructor Immo, Instructor Immo, we know we were wrong. Instructor Immo, please give us one last chance." However, Immerse just snorted coldly. "I'll only give you one chance." After that, he ignored them and went straight into the lakeside villa. Shui Wugen and the dragon warriors looked at each other. "What should we do? How about we wait until death? If my instructor doesn't agree, we won't leave," a dragon warrior suggested. The other dragon warriors all nodded. Then they returned to the square and continued to stand up straight. One had to admit that they were indeed very persistent. They stood there for the entire night. At noon the next day, When Immerse woke up, they were still standing in the square. However, Immerse still ignored them. They stood in the square for the entire day. This night, they still stood straight for the entire night. Due to the long lifespan of dragon warriors, there were many legends about perseverance in dragon culture. As long as you persevered, it seemed that there was nothing you couldn't do. If one day wasn't enough, then 10 days. If 10 days weren't enough, then a year. If 1 year wasn't enough, then 100 years or 1,000 years. There would always be a time when you could do it. The next morning, they were prepared to continue standing there and waiting for Immerse. They believed that their perseverance would eventually move him. However, this morning, Star-Lord Kong Hai ordered the 1,000 soldiers to return to the Eastern Front as soon as possible and replace them with the next batch of soldiers. As a result, these soldiers were completely out of luck with this opportunity. They were all extremely dejected. The next afternoon, when they returned to the Eastern Front, the general of the Eastern Front summoned them for questioning. Why exactly did the Star-Lord send them to Ocean of Cloud City? When he asked this question, the Eastern Front general was surprised to discover that over 40 dragon warriors had grown stronger. At the very least, they had reached Tier 2, with some even reaching Tier 4. As for the rest of the soldiers, their strength did not increase. After asking the general of the Eastern Front, they understood what had happened. He immediately scolded the soldiers who failed to seize this opportunity. He could have used this opportunity to increase his strength. In the end, these guys missed such an opportunity. Not only did they fail to improve their own strength, but the strength of the Eastern Front also failed to improve because of them. What a bunch of idiots. Then, the general of the Eastern Front ordered that the soldiers be locked up for half a month and deduct half a year's worth of dragon coins from them. This was a warning to the rest of the warriors. The next morning, he sent out the second batch of soldiers. The general of the Eastern Front did not discount this second batch of soldiers. Instead, he sent out 5,000 soldiers. Moreover, these 5,000 soldiers were all elites that he had handpicked. Most of them were Tier 5 evolved dragons. These soldiers were all very excited. When they left, the general of the Eastern Front gathered them together and gave them a lecture. All 5,000 of you, listen up. Every one of you must advance by at least 1 grade when you return. If you can't, you will be executed in public. His words were very strict. The soldiers were all shocked. However, since Instructor Mo had the ability to improve the strength of the other dragons, they would naturally advance by 1 grade as long as they did as Instructor Mo said. In just 1 short month, Immerse had helped 15,000 soldiers advance by at least 1 grade. Moreover, the ones with the lowest potential had advanced by 1 grade. Most of them had advanced by 2 or even 3 grades. The one with the highest potential had advanced by 5 grades. He had gone from a Tier 5 evolved dragon to a Tier 10 evolved dragon. This was a terrifying improvement. On this day, a scout from the front lines came to report. General, bad news. The border city has fallen. The border city was a small city at the very front of the Eastern Front. As a matter of fact, this small city had no strategic significance. However, as the soldiers of the Eastern Front, they kept in mind the ancient motto, territory is sacred and inviolable. Those Hulong had occupied the border city. Naturally, they had to take it back. The general of the Eastern Front raised his eyebrows slightly. How many Hulong have come? About 100,000 of them. The general of the Eastern Front said without any hesitation, let those 15,000 soldiers deal with the 100,000 Hulong. The counselor next to him was a little worried. General, there are 100,000 Hulong. I don't think it's appropriate for us to only send 15,000 soldiers. Generally speaking, the strength of the dragon warriors was stronger than Hulong, but not by this much. 10,000 warriors could resist 15,000 Hulong at most. Now, they were only sending 15,000 to deal with 100,000 Hulong. No wonder he was worried. However, the general of the Eastern Front shook his head. This is the only way to show the might of our Eastern Front army. Also, they only sent 100,000 people and dare to occupy our border city. Obviously, they have other plans. If too many of us leave here and the city is empty, Can you guarantee that they won't take advantage of the situation and invade? The counselor nodded. General, you have foresight. I admire you. In the afternoon of the same day, the 15,000 soldiers left for the border city. At the same time, the 100,000 who hung around and in the center of the border city were singing and dancing to their heart's content. A spy came to report, "Boss, it's bad. The Eastern Front Army is here." The leader of the Hulong was a bearded man. Hearing the spy's report, he put down the wine cup in his hand and asked, "How many of them are here?" The spy replied, "Estimated to be around 15,000. The boss was a little stunned, and then he burst out laughing. "They look down on us too much. They want to fight against 100,000 Hulong with only 15,000 soldiers? That's too childish. In this case, let's let them have a taste of our Hulong's power." Someone next to him said, "Boss, do they have any plans?" The bearded man waved his hand. "Even if they do, so what? Our mission this time is to lure them here. Our other brothers can take advantage of the situation and directly attack their general's mansion. This time, we'll make them suffer a great loss and even kill their general directly." Hearing this, the crowd raised their weapons and roared angrily. "Kill the general and spread the glory of our long way. Kill the general and spread the glory of our long way. Kill the general and spread the glory of our long way." Chapter 637. When the 15,000 soldiers of the Eastern Front Army were 5 kilometers away from the border city, the 100,000 Hurons were already in position. In the past, whenever the Hurons encountered the Eastern Front Army, they would always split up and engage in guerrilla warfare. This time, however, they were preparing to fight the Eastern Front Army. This was very unusual. The captain of the 15,000 soldiers of the Eastern Front Army shouted at the Hurons from afar, "The Eastern Front Army is here. Why don't you surrender now? If you don't surrender, it will be too late for regrets." The bearded leader of the Hurons laughed. "So what if the Eastern Front Army is here? What's there to be afraid of? 15,000 soldiers coming to attack our 100,000 giant dragons. Aren't they just sending themselves to their deaths?" The captain of the Eastern Front Army sneered, "Since you don't want to listen, then die." Then he waved his flag, and the 15,000 soldiers of the Eastern Front Army charged forward. When they charged over, they all transformed into their giant dragon forms. Each of the 15,000 giant dragons was 1,000 meters long. The sky was instantly filled with them. It was a spectacular scene. The 100,000 giant dragons thought that the Eastern Front Army had sent only 15,000 giant dragons over for some reason. There might even be an ambush in the dark, so they were already prepared. However, after some investigation, they found no ambush within a radius of tens of kilometers. This surprised the Hurons. Did the Eastern Front Army think that their 15,000 giant dragons could fight the 100,000 giant dragons? Apart from being surprised, the bearded man's eyes were filled with viciousness. Since they wanted to give their heads to him, it would be impolite to refuse. He then raised his right hand, intending to order the Hurons to attack. However, at this moment, he paused for a moment. Strange. He felt that the strength of the Eastern Front Army seemed to have increased. The aura of the captain of the Eastern Front Army was no longer that of a 5th-grade evolved giant dragon. He sensed it carefully and found that he couldn't tell what grade the captain's aura was. This meant that the captain was far more powerful than him. He was a 5th-grade evolved giant dragon. That meant that the captain was most likely a 7th grade or even 8th grade evolved giant dragon. Thinking of this, he kept an eye out. He ordered the Hurons around him, set up the formation, and act according to the situation. If you see something wrong, retreat immediately. The surrounding dragons felt a little strange. Why did Boss suddenly become a coward? Why would 100,000 Hulong cower in the face of 15,000 soldiers of the Eastern Front? This didn't seem like Boss's personality. At this moment, those from the Eastern Army had arrived. They were fearless in the face of 100,000 dragons. Their fangs and claws slashed at these Hulong. As soon as they attacked, the dragons felt that something was wrong. They had been fighting guerrilla warfare for hundreds of years, so they were very familiar with the Eastern Front Army. However, the strength displayed by these 15,000 Eastern Front army was far greater than before. That was not all. The aura of the captain of the Eastern Front army instantly spread out and enveloped them, causing the energy in their bodies to circulate very slowly. It was obvious that the strength of this Eastern Line captain had increased a lot in a short period of time. Previously, he was only a rank 5 evolved giant dragon, but now his strength had most likely reached the rank 7 or even the rank 8. This made the Hu dragons a little flustered. Just as they were panicking, the Eastern Front army had already arrived, and the captain of the Eastern Front army flew towards Hulong's boss. Seeing this, Hulong's boss hurriedly tried to escape. However, it was too late. The captain of the Eastern Front army transformed into a giant dragon and lunged at Hulong's boss. Hulong's boss also transformed into a giant dragon, but he only had one goal: escape. That was because he could sense that this captain of the Eastern Front army was not someone he could handle. However, it was too late. SSSS. The captain of the Eastern Front army stabbed his front claws into Hulong's back. He exerted some force and tore Hulong's body into two halves. Instant kill. As a result, the entire Hu Dragon army was thrown into chaos. All the Hu Dragons were in disbelief. Their boss had been dealing with the Eastern Front army for many years. Both sides knew each other very well. They were both rank 5 evolved giant dragons. How could this captain of the Eastern Front army kill their boss in an instant? Since their boss was already dead, they only had one choice: escape. The Hu Dragons had been fighting guerrilla warfare all this time and lacked the ability to fight large-scale battles. If they had fought together in such a situation, they might have had a chance of winning. However, they scattered and fled and could only be hunted down by the Eastern Front army. In this final battle, the Eastern Front army had killed over 2,000 of the Hu Dragons out of 15,000 of them. It was a pity that these Hulong were very cunning. Many of them had space attribute escape methods, so most of them were taken away by the Hulong. However, killing 2,000 of them was already the greatest victory they had achieved over the years. Over the years, the Hu Dragons had split up and attacked everywhere. Even in the battles where the Eastern Front army won, they had only killed 100 Hu Dragons at most. A battle where 2,000 Hu Dragons were killed had never happened before. Moreover, it was very difficult to obtain escape methods with spatial attributes, especially for these Hulong. They did not dare to trade openly in the market. Therefore, it was even more difficult for them to get their hands on such things. Now that they had used up their spatial escape techniques, they would not be able to escape the next time they ran into them. Therefore, these Hu Dragons would stop for a while, and the Eastern Front army would be able to enjoy some peace. The general of the Eastern Front army saw the results of this battle from the central control room. He was very satisfied. Only 15,000 of the Eastern Front army had defeated 100,000 Hu Dragons. This was indeed a great reputation for the Eastern Front army. It made those Hu Dragons fearful, and at the same time, it foiled their conspiracy. That Mentor MO was indeed powerful. It seemed that if he had the chance to return to Cloud Sea City in the future, he would have to pay a visit to Mentor MO in person and express his gratitude. At the same time, in a lakeside villa, M.O. Sure, who was tasting tea, suddenly heard a series of notifications in his mind. Dragon slaying value +1. Dragon slaying value +1. Dragon slaying value +1. When the notifications ended, M.O. Sure looked at his dragon slaying value again. Dragon slaying value to 0311000. You can level up. Do you want to level up now? M.O. Sure was secretly delighted. This was really a case of leveling up while he was sitting at home. He had leveled up while he was tasting tea here. Well, this could work. Level up, M.O. Sure said in his mind. Soon, a notification came in M.O. Sure's mind. Level up successful. At this time, he looked at his attributes again. Name, M.O. Sure, level. Tier, 1 Magician, Tier, 8 Super Evolved Dragon ability. Click to expand. Phew. M.O. Sure let out a long breath. Becoming a Tier 8 Super Evolved Dragon meant that he was one step closer to becoming an Ancient Dragon. As long as he became an Ancient Dragon, he would be able to do whatever he wanted. He had been keeping a low profile since coming to the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. He had been holding it in for a long time. Chapter 638. Since the Eastern Front Army had killed over 2,000 Hu Dragons, the Hu Dragons were much more restrained in the following days, and the Eastern Front was much more peaceful. Of course, the peace on the Eastern Front was not a good thing for Immerse. The more peaceful the Eastern Front was, the less dragon killing points he had. But even so, the Eastern Front Army still sent 5,000 dragons to Cloud Sea City to learn from Immerse every 10 days. Immerse still taught them the multiplication table before helping them break through. Gradually, the number of Immerse's students increased by the system. After more than 2 months, his students had already reached more than 30,000 people. At this time, Immerse hoped that a war would break out somewhere so that he could instantly level up. However, the entire Cloud Sea planet had been relatively peaceful recently, and there was no war at all. The Cloud Sea planet and the other planets also lived in harmony, and there were no wars. This made Immerse speechless. He could only walk around aimlessly every day. He looked very relaxed, but no one knew the helplessness in his heart. On this day, Immerse was teaching students at the academy. A spaceship slowly descended above the Cloud Sea Academy. When the instructors of Ocean of Clouds Academy saw the symbol on the flying ship clearly, all of their expressions changed slightly. There was a dark green skull symbol on the spaceship. It looked a little strange and a little terrifying. This is a spaceship from the Myriad Poison Planet. The Myriad Poison Planet was notorious in the nearby star fields. There was poison everywhere on the Myriad Poison Planet. Plants were poisonous, animals were poisonous, microbes were poisonous, and even the air was poisonous. It was very difficult for ordinary dragons to survive on the Myriad Poison Planet, but for poison-type dragons, it was a treasure trove. Their cultivation, there was twice the result with half the effort. So many poison-type dragons would eventually go to the Myriad Poison Planet. If such a planet developed, its strength would far surpass other planets. But poison-type dragons were very rare. Out of 100 dragons, only one poison-type dragon would appear. So the number of poison-type dragons was a big problem. So it was very difficult for them to develop. But even so, no one dared to casually provoke the Myriad Poison Planet. The master of the Myriad Poison Planet was a rank 7 super evolved dragon. It was very difficult to find a rank 7 super evolved dragon in the nearby star fields. Moreover, it was a rank 7 super evolved giant dragon with a poison attribute. This made it even harder to deal with. If they provoked him, one of his big moves would probably cause millions of corpses to fall. Therefore, the planets in the nearby star fields had formed a consensus that it was best not to provoke the giant dragons of the Myriad Poison Star for no reason. Only 2 people came down from the aircraft. Both of them had dyed their hair dark green and wore dark green eyeshadow. It gave people a very strange feeling. One of them said, "Big brother, is this Cloud Sea planet? You didn't go the wrong way, did you? Are you kidding? How can I get lost? I heard that planet Cloud Sea is a very beautiful planet, but why does this place make me feel so *king uncomfortable? Nonsense. The air you breathed on the Myriad Poison Planet was beneficial to your body. Here, there's no poison in the air at all. It's only natural that you feel uncomfortable. That's true. What kind of lousy planet is this? It's really annoying. Let's hurry up and leave with that person." As the 2 of them spoke, they completely ignored the teachers and students around them. After they finished speaking, they waved at a student. The student didn't dare to step forward. Instead, it was a teacher who blocked the student's path. "May I ask why the 2 of you have come to our Cloud Sea planet?" One of them said just one thing. "Where's that teacher, Mo? We want to take him away." His words were very domineering. It gave people the feeling that no one would dare stop them. Although the teacher was displeased, he didn't dare to show it on his face. These fellows weren't like ordinary bad guys. They didn't show their emotions on their faces, and they acted without any rules. They did everything according to their whims. If they weren't careful, They could easily poison a large number of people. The teacher said, I still need to report this matter to the dean. Please follow me. What dean? We want to find that teacher Mo right now. Take me to him immediately. The two of them were rank 3 super evolved giant dragons. They naturally didn't care about the dean of the Cloud Sea Academy. Moreover, their purpose in coming to Cloud Sea Planet was to take Immerse away. They couldn't be bothered to deal with the dean. When the teacher heard this, he thought to himself, should he take them to see Immerse? If he took them to see him, who knew where they would take teacher Mo and what they would do? If he didn't take them to see him, they might kill all the students in the academy in a fit of anger. Fortunately, at this moment, the dean appeared in time. The dean had naturally received the report that a flying ship from Myriad Poison Planet had appeared in the academy. He quickly rushed over and glanced at the 2 giant dragons from Myriad Poison Planet. He cupped his fists and said, Why have the 2 of you come to our Cloud Sea Academy? The 2 men sized up the dean from head to toe. Who are you? I'm the dean of the Cloud Sea Academy. You could tell me anything. The dean said with a smile on his face. However, the 2 of them waved their hands as if they were chasing a dog. Go away, go away. We're looking for teacher Mo. Everyone else, get out of my way. The dean's face darkened. After being the dean for so many years, this was the first time someone spoke to him like this. However, he couldn't lose his temper in the face of these 2 fellows who were covered in poison. Helpless, the dean could only say to the teacher, Take them to teacher Mo. At the same time, he used his mind to send a voice transmission to Immerse. 2 giant dragons from Myriad Poison Planet are looking for you. Do you want to avoid them in advance? Immerse replied indifferently. Avoid what? Why should I avoid them? Let them come. The dean heard that Immerse didn't panic at all. Instead, he seemed to have a card up his sleeve. Only then did he feel relieved. Soon, the 2 of them were brought to Immerse by the teacher. At this moment, Immerse was watering the flowers at the door of his office. He was living a very leisurely life now. He was either tasting tea or watering flowers. In the eyes of the other giant dragons, he was as leisurely as a god. The 2 green-furred myriad poison star dragons looked Immerse up and down. One of them asked, Your teacher Mo? Immerse didn't look at them and continued watering the flowers. At the same time, he replied indifferently, That's right. The other Myriad Poison Planet giant dragon shook his head. He looks very ordinary. Who cares? Anyway, the Star-Lord asked us to take him back. We just need to complete the mission. Then come with us. The 2 of them spoke as if they were talking to a criminal, and they didn't care about Immerse's feelings at all. Immerse chuckled. If I go just because you asked me to, wouldn't I lose face? The teacher who followed them couldn't help but change his expression slightly. He whispered to Immerse, Teacher Mo and the others are giant dragons from Myriad Poison Planet. Be careful. Chapter 639. When the 2 dragons saw that Immerse did not take their words seriously, they snorted coldly. A mere teacher is a frog at the bottom of a well. He doesn't understand the power of our dragons. The other dragon waved his hand impatiently. What's the point of talking so much with him? Just take him away. Seeing this, the dean hurriedly stood in front of Immerse. The 2 of you can talk things out. If you really want to take teacher Mo away, you should at least get our Star-Lord's permission. After all, teacher Mo is a member of our Cloud Sea Planet and is very important to us. However, before the dean could finish his words, his face suddenly turned green. This green color quickly spread from his face to his veins, forming dark green lines that looked like the veins of a leaf. The dean, a rank 2 super evolved dragon, was poisoned in an instant. The other teacher was shocked and wanted to save the dean, but the dean took a step back and said hoarsely, Don't touch me. There's poison. Only then did the teacher retract his hand. The giant dragon from a myriad poison star didn't pay any attention to the dean and strode towards Immerse. Teacher Mo, leave quickly. Don't worry about us. Leave quickly. The dean knew that Immerse had spatial abilities, If he wanted to escape, no one could stop him. Hearing this, the dragon of the myriad poison star chuckled. The space within 100 kilometers has already been locked by our space lock chains. None of you can escape. Then he placed his right hand on Immerse's shoulder. However, at that moment, bang, the myriad poison's star dragon's body exploded into a bloody mist. There was no warning at all. Not only was the other myriad poison's star dragon shocked, but even the dean and the others were shocked. Seeing this, the other myriad poison's star dragon glared at Immerse fiercely. You dare kill my myriad poison star dragon? Courting death. As he spoke, a dark green smoke quickly spread out from his body. As the smoke spread, the leaves around him withered and rotted. Even the ground under his feet was covered in a layer of black. Even the ground was rotting quickly. Have you ever seen animals rot, plants rot, and soil rot? But at this moment, as the smoke spread out from his body, the ground under his feet was rapidly rotting. From this, it could be seen how toxic the smoke was. However, at this moment, bang! Just like before, the poisonous giant dragon's body quickly exploded into a bloody mist. As his body exploded, the rotten ground finally stopped spreading. Although there was still some residual dark green smoke ahead, Immerse completely ignored it. He walked up to the principal. He reached out and patted the dean's shoulder. The dean quickly dodged and said, "Don't touch me. I've been poisoned." However, Immerse's hand was already on his shoulder. In the next moment, a warm energy entered his body and quickly spread through his 8 extraordinary meridians. As this energy spread, he felt as if he was being illuminated by the sun. His entire body felt warm. After a short 3 minutes, the black color on his face quickly faded. When Immerse withdrew the energy from his body, he no longer felt the cold sensation of being poisoned. "It's fine now," Immerse said. The dean looked at his hands and legs from head to toe. The instructor next to him also said in disbelief, "The dean is fine." The dean hurriedly cupped his fist to Immerse. "Instructor Immerse, thank you. I can't repay you for saving my life." Immerse did not wait for him to finish and waved his hand. "Dean, we're all colleagues. There's no need to say anything unnecessary." The dean nodded, but then said, "Instructor Immerse, now that we've killed these two, if Myriad Poison Planet pursues the matter, we'll be in big trouble." Immerse shook his head. "Isn't it better if they pursue the matter? We can destroy Myriad Poison Planet while we're at it." The dean and the instructor looked at each other. Destroy Myriad Poison Planet while they're at it? Wasn't it too easy for him to say that? However, looking at Instructor Mo's strength, the 2 giant dragons from Myriad Poison Planet exploded into a bloody mist without even moving a finger. Even the dean, a rank 2 super-evolved giant dragon, did not know how Immerse did it. However, in his heart, Immerse's status had risen by another level. He had thought that Immerse was only a 5th or 6th grade super-evolved giant dragon. Now it seemed he was wrong. Very wrong. Let alone a 6th grade ultra-evolved dragon. Even a 10th grade ultra-evolved dragon couldn't do what Immerse had just done. He didn't even need to lift a finger to kill 2 3rd grade ultra-evolved dragons in an instant. When they thought of this, the 2 of them felt that Instructor Immerse might actually be able to destroy Myriad Poison Planet while he was at it. How powerful was Instructor Immerse? He was probably an ancient dragon at the very least. The 2 of them looked at each other again when they thought of the ancient dragon. Ancient dragons. They were existences that only existed in legends. They had not seen a single ancient dragon in the entire Cloud Sea planet, not including the entire Myriad Dragonstar region. Now, there was an ancient dragon hiding in Cloud Sea Academy. It felt like a dream to them. Immerse did not think much of the 2 dragons after he killed them. In fact, he was even looking forward to it. "Everyone from Myriad Poison Planet, come find me." The more people that came, the better. At the same time, on Myriad Poison Planet, Myriad Poison Planet's master, Du Qianhua, was with several women with perfect figures and perfect faces. They were admiring the beautiful scenery of Myriad Poison Planet. Myriad Poison Heart Poison was extremely poisonous, but one had to admit that the scenery here was indeed beautiful. Moreover, it was the most beautiful star among the hundreds of nearby star regions. At this moment, a giant dragon came to report, "Master, bad news." Du Qianhua frowned. "Can't you see that I'm busy?" Scram! The giant dragon's heart trembled, and he hurriedly retreated. After another 2 hours, Du Qianhua had finished admiring the scenery and returned to his poison palace. The giant dragon came to report again, "Master, bad news. Du Pingji and Du Yueji's life sensors have turned black." There was a type of life sensor in the myriad Dragonstar region. No matter how far away you were, it could sense your life. Normally, the life sensor would be green, indicating that the life was normal. However, when the target was injured, the life sensor would turn red. When the target died, the life sensor would turn black. When Du Qianhua heard this, his face sank. "Why didn't you report when the life sensor turned red?" If they had reported it at that time, they might have been able to save the two of them. The reporting giant dragon shook his head. It didn't change. It turned from green to black in an instant. When Du Qianhua heard this, he frowned. If it didn't turn red, it meant that the two of them had been killed in an instant without being injured. He slammed the table beside him. "Preposterous! Investigate!" Chapter 640. Recently, Cloud Sea Planet seemed to be peaceful and uneventful. Star-Lord Kong Hai was a soldier, and after he took office, he paid attention to strengthening the military. Coupled with the fact that Immerse had increased the military's combat strength, the Hu dragons didn't dare to attack everywhere. Therefore, the four seas were peaceful and peaceful. However, on this day, no one noticed that over 10 scouts from Myriad Poison Planet had mixed in with the people who came to Cloud Sea Planet. Scouts were people who specially went to other planets to investigate everything about that planet, or they would carry out some special missions on other planets. They would usually disguise themselves as tourists or merchants to travel between planets. They had all received a high degree of professional training, so it was very difficult for ordinary people to distinguish them. As soon as they arrived at Cloud Sea Star, they headed straight for Cloud Sea City. Because the two scouts had come to invite Immerse to Cloud Sea Planet, their mysterious deaths were definitely related to Cloud Sea City. It didn't take long for those scouts who disguised themselves as tourists to spread throughout the city. It had to be said that they were very good at gathering information. In just 5 days, they had gathered enough information in the huge city. Even though the Star-Lord knew that Immerse had killed the 2 dragons of Cloud Sea Planet and had been emphasizing that it must be kept a secret, these scouts still used all sorts of methods. They were bribed or threatened, and they were always able to get the information they needed. In the end, not only did they manage to gather enough information, they even managed to obtain the video of Immerse killing the 2 talent scouts in seconds. Among the 10 scouts, the leader was called the Inspector. When the Inspector showed the video to the rest of the talent scouts, they were all horrified. He didn't even have to do anything to kill them. Could he be in existence even stronger than the Long Nianshi? The legendary Long Nianshi. Many people think that the Long Nianshi really exists. In fact, the Long Nianshi is just a legend. There is no such thing as the Long Nianshi in history. Once Dragon Sense reaches level 10, the Long Nianshi won't be able to level up anymore. As for us giant dragons, our bodies are extremely tough. It would be child's play to think that you can kill a giant dragon with just your dragon will. Then what's going on? None of these talent scouts had any clue. Why don't we report this to the Star Master first and let him make a decision? This suggestion was unanimously approved by everyone, and the Inspector made the final decision. Soon, they reported the matter to the Star Master and sent the video. The Star-Lord of the Myriad Poison Planet frowned slightly when he saw the video. Based on his experience, Immerse should have used some kind of spatial technique. The space attribute Giant Dragon had many unimaginable skills. For example, they could use space collapse. When a space collapsed, any creature in the space would instantly explode, just like in the video. However, You wouldn't be able to see any signs of space collapsing from the outside because space was formless and formless. He only knew that Immerse had many attributes, but he didn't expect him to have the space attribute as well. In the end, the Star Lord of the myriad poison planet made up his mind. Let Dukong go. He must bring him back. Dukong was a general under the Star Lord of the myriad poison planet. She was one of those rare dual attribute dragons. Not only did she have the poison attribute, but she also had the space attribute. The combination of the poison attribute and the space attribute allowed her to be far more powerful than other dragons of the same grade. Under normal circumstances, a 4th grade ultra-evolved dragon like him could easily kill a 6th grade ultra-evolved dragon. That was why the Star Lord of the myriad poison planet was somewhat wary of Dukong, even though he was a 6th grade ultra-evolved dragon. Dukong was a female dragon with a seductive figure. She was one of those dragons who looked seductive, but whose entire body was filled with poison. Even though she had many admirers on the myriad poison planet, none of these admirers dared to pursue her. What a joke! Who would dare to touch a dragon covered in poison? Moreover, she was a 4th grade ultra-evolved dragon. Her power had already surpassed 99% of all dragons. Think about it. If you really became a couple with her, if someone else's girlfriend got angry, she would either ignore them or argue with them. If Dukong got angry, she would silently poison you. This was going to cost him his life. Before Dukong set off, the Star Lord of the myriad poison planet warned him, "Your target is a dragon with many attributes. Moreover, he also has the space attribute. You must be careful." Dukong smiled seductively. "You must be joking, Star Lord. The most powerful innate talent in history only had 3 attributes. Do you think he has many attributes?" The Star Lord of the myriad poison planet nodded. "Of course. I also know that the most powerful innate talent in history only had 3 attributes. The reason he has so many attributes is very likely because he has used some sort of trick. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, poison, ice, and space. He has shown all of these attributes before." Dukong chuckled when he heard this. That only means he is lucky to be able to obtain skill items with these attributes. However, no matter how many skill items with these attributes he has, they're not his own attributes. So don't worry, Star-Lord. Hee hee. Dukong smiled seductively at the end of his speech. Even the Star-Lord, Du Qianhua, felt like he couldn't take it anymore. In truth, Du Qianhua had a bad impression of Dukong since a long time ago. However, he was a very cautious person, including when it came to pursuing women. When he understood Dukong, he dismissed the idea of pursuing him. Even though he was the Star Lord, he was not to be trifled with. If he provoked Dukong, he might not even know how he died. Dukong might only be a 4th grade super evolved dragon, but if he used his unique attribute and the space attribute at the same time, it would be easy for him to kill a 6th grade poison dragon. Soon, Dukong left the myriad poison planet. He blended into the tourists of the Cloud Sea planet. As the most powerful talent scout on the myriad poison planet, her disguise skills were also very strong. First, she tampered with her appearance. Her true appearance was simply too alluring. If she were to become a talent scout, she would attract too much attention. Thus, she first disguised herself as a very ordinary woman. He then arrived at the Cloud Sea planet. After arriving at the Cloud Sea planet, he went straight to the Cloud Sea city. After meeting up with the other talent scouts, he quickly found Immerse's residence. On this evening, Immerse was sitting on a rocking chair by the lake, slowly rocking. The setting sun spread across the surface of the lake, dyeing it crimson. The bamboo forest by the lake was also dyed crimson. In addition to the clouds and the sky being dyed pink, it was as if the entire world had been dyed crimson. A crimson woman slowly walked out from this crimson scene. Chapter 641. Under the crimson sunset, a woman in a pink dress slowly walked over on the path by the crimson lake. This woman's face was definitely comparable to Happy's, and her figure was comparable to Emma's. What was the ceiling of pure lust? Immerse felt that this woman was it. This woman slowly walked towards Immerse. She had a charming smile on her face. With such a face, such a figure, and such a charming smile, not many men would reject her. I am Du Kong from the Myriad Poison Star. If Instructor Mo is free, please come with me. He didn't have any ruthlessness on his face. Instead, he gave people the urge to fall in love with him. Immerse looked at this woman with a faint smile on his face. All right, I'll go with you. Du Kong was slightly stunned when he heard this. Then he shook his head. He thought that it was some ruthless character that he had to deal with personally. He didn't expect that he would be moved with just one sentence. He was really disappointed. In fact, after Immerse killed the 2 envoys from the Myriad Poison Star, he knew that the Myriad Poison Star Lord wouldn't let it go. He would definitely send more people over. However, he didn't expect that the Myriad Poison Star Lord would send a woman. However, it didn't matter whether it was a man or a woman. As long as it was a human, he would go with them and destroy the Myriad Poison Star. Otherwise, even if he killed this woman, the Myriad Poison Star would still send more people over. Moreover, they would be stronger and more numerous. Troublesome. He might as well go with them and destroy the entire Myriad Poison Star in one go. According to Immerse's understanding, the Myriad Poison Star had about 50,000 poison attribute giant dragons. It should be enough for him to advance to rank 10. He might even be able to advance to become an ancient giant dragon. When he thought about ancient giant dragons, Immerse felt a little excited. Du Kong saw that Immerse had already stood up. He smiled charmingly and said, "Let's go." Immerse shouted towards the villa behind him. "Lay run. I'm going to the Myriad Poison Star. I'll be back in 1 or 2 days, or at most 1 or 2 months. Don't let anyone find me, understand?" Lay Run, who was cultivating in the courtyard, was shocked when he heard Immerse's shout. Myriad Poison Star? Big Brother Mo is actually going to the Myriad Poison Star? This was incredible. He quickly jumped out of the courtyard. Immerse waved his hand at her and flew to the aircraft in the sky with the woman. Lei Rin cursed in his heart. At this moment, he couldn't catch up. Even if he caught up, there was nothing he could do. He could only inform the dean of this news as soon as possible. The expressions of the dean and the others also changed drastically. Leiren, are you sure, Instructor? Mo left with a smile on his face. Leiren nodded. Also, he said that he would be going to Myriad Poison Star for at least a day or 2, or at most a month. He told us not to look for him. The dean looked at the other instructors and pondered for a moment. Finally, he said, I think Instructor Mo must have his own plans. With Instructor Mo's strength, we shouldn't worry about him. Perhaps he just wants to go to Myriad Poison Planet to broaden his horizons. As for those people on Myriad Poison Planet wanting to harm him, I don't think that's possible. Instructor Mo has mastered all kinds of attributes, especially the time and space attributes. It won't be that easy for those people from the Myriad Poison Star to kill him. Should we inform the Star Master about this? The Star Master is also Instructor Mo's disciple. He has the right to know. Of course, we must inform the Star Master about this. Thus, the Dean reported this matter to the Star Master, Kong Hai. When Kong Hai heard about this, he was shocked at first. Then, he quickly gathered his strategists for a discussion. However, after much discussion, the outcome was the same as what the Dean had said. Since Immerse had been so confident at the time, they didn't need to panic. Moreover, Kong Hai had absolute trust in Instructor Mo. He believed that with Instructor Mo's ability, if the Myriad Poison Star tried to force him to stay, the Myriad Poison Star would suffer in the end. At the same time, Immerse and Du Kong had already boarded the spaceship in the sky. Du Kong said with a hint of mockery, Did you just say that it would take at least a day or 2, or at most a month or 2 to return? Immerse nodded and asked seriously, Is there something wrong? Du Kong chuckled. Let me tell you a secret. No one who goes to Myriad Poison Star leaves alive. After he finished speaking, he looked at Immerse's face as if he wanted to see a trace of fear on Immerse's face. However, Immerse only responded with a simple "oh." Then, he turned his head to admire the beautiful scenery below. This slightly surprised Du Kong. This guy seemed to have a card up his sleeve. However, it was obvious that this guy wasn't confident. He was just blindly arrogant. What kind of place was Myriad Poison Star? Among the hundreds of planets nearby, Myriad Poison Star was like hell. Even if you were a rank 5, 6, or 7 super evolved dragon, so what? Even the air on Myriad Poison Star was poisonous. Once you arrived at Myriad Poison Star, you would be poisoned. The energy in your body would be very sluggish. If you forced it, your meridians would break and you would die. Under such circumstances, even if you were strong, what could you do? The distance from Myriad Poison Star to Cloud Sea Planet was quite far. If they flew there directly, it would take at least 3 to 4 days. However, in highly developed space civilizations, there were wormholes connecting them. These wormholes were called big bug bridges. Immerse and Dukong took the spaceship and arrived at the big bug bridge closest to Cloud Sea Planet. After paying 1,000 dragon coins, they passed through the big bug bridge and arrived at the big bug bridge near Myriad Poison Star. After flying for another half an hour, they finally arrived at Myriad Poison Star. As soon as they entered Myriad Poison Star's atmosphere, they could see that the entire Myriad Poison Star was shrouded in clouds of various colors. There were red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, white, and gray. If one looked at Myriad Poison Star from space, it would look like a big, colorful ball. They passed through a large purple cloud. When they looked at the ground again, they saw that the ground below was covered with mountains and trees. Almost all of these trees were purple. However, the degree of purple varied. Some were deep purple, some were light purple, and some were purplish red. Even the water of a large lake below was purple. After passing through this purple forest, they arrived at a golden plain. Everything here seemed to be golden in color. All the trees and flowers were golden in color, including the lake water. Immerse had learned that this was because there were microbes of various colors in the lake water. Therefore, from above, it looked like the lake water was the same color. At the center of this golden plain was a city. The scale of this city was far inferior to Cloud Sea Planet's Cloud Sea Planet. After all, Cloud Sea Planet had over 50 million people living in it. The total population of Myriad Poison Star was only around 50,000. Chapter 642. On the golden grassland, a golden city rose from the ground. Of course, this city wasn't as majestic or massive as Cloud Sea City. The city's exterior was also a dazzling golden color. The streets, the roads, the houses, and even the moat around the city were golden in color. Immerse was speechless at this sight. Wasn't it boring to see nothing but gold from the moment you opened your eyes in the morning until the moment you closed them at night? Immerse scanned the city with his magical will and discovered that the most powerful creature in the city was a 7th grade super evolved dragon. That person was probably Star-Lord Du Qianhua of Myriad Poisons. According to historical records, Myriad Poisons was still an undeveloped planet 2,000 years ago. Very few dragons would come to this planet. Even dragons with the poison attribute wouldn't come to this planet. That was because this planet was simply too dangerous. Even if you played with poison, you might lose your life if you weren't careful. Only those fugitives who were wanted by various planets and had nowhere else to go would escape to this place. Slowly, more and more fugitives appeared. When they discovered the terror of Myriad Poisons, these fugitives had no choice but to band together for protection. They started to band together and slowly form an army with combat power. Slowly, more and more people appeared, and so did the army. Finally, there were over 70,000 dragons in total. As the saying went, where there were humans, there was a society. Where there were dragons, there was also a society. As more and more armies appeared, these armies often fought each other for the sake of profit. Everyone was a fugitive. There was no reason to reason with each other. Profit was everything here. That was until Dragon Du Qianhua appeared 2,000 years ago. Back then, he was only a 5th grade super evolved dragon. However, even a 5th grade super evolved dragon was an invincible existence on the planet at the time. Thus, he led 2 of his subordinates and started to recruit these armies. Anyone who wasn't willing to join them was exterminated. In the end, only 50,000 dragons were left on the planet. These 50,000 dragons were all recruited by him. After their construction, they finally built a city on the plains, the City of Myriad Poisons. When their City of Myriad Poisons was built, the government came looking for them. However, this time, the government wasn't here to capture them. They were too powerful, and they were backed by Myriad Poison Planet, a planet full of danger. If they wanted to capture them, they would have to pay a huge price. He might as well make Du Qianhua the Star Lord and let him manage these fugitives. The final outcome was indeed very satisfactory to the officials. Du Qianhua accepted their conferment. At the same time, under Du Qianhua's management, these fugitives almost never left Myriad Poison Planet. This was the history of the Myriad Poisons Planet's Myriad Poison City. However, Du Qianhua's ambition did not stop there. Who wouldn't want to go to those highly developed civilized planets to enjoy themselves? Compared to those highly developed civilized planets, the Myriad Poison Planet was like a barren wasteland. Apart from the Myriad Poison City, which was barely worth looking at, the other places were filled with trepidation. However, if you want to develop on other planets, you will need strength. The increase in strength was firstly based on the increase in the level of the dragons, and secondly based on the number of dragons. Now that there was no way to increase the number of dragons in a short period of time, he could only let the dragons under him increase their strength as soon as possible. Therefore, when he heard that there was a mentor Immerse who could raise any dragon's level by 1 or even 5 levels in a short period of time, he sent someone to look for Immerse. Immerse followed Du Kong into the Myriad Poison City. Only then did he realize that his previous thoughts were completely unnecessary. Although the Myriad Poison City looked completely golden on the outside. In fact, after entering the city, he realized that the inside of the city was not much different from an ordinary city. They might have used some kind of high-tech method to make the city look golden on the outside. Walking on the streets of the Myriad Poison City, the people coming and going were all like the non-mainstream people Immerse had seen on Earth. Some had red hair, some had green hair, and some had yellow hair. People who didn't know better would think that the traffic lights had turned into spirits. Some had very dark eyeshadow, some had green eyeshadow, and some had purple eyeshadow. Their clothes were also brightly colored. Immerse thought to himself that in the natural world, the brighter the color of a creature, the more poisonous it was. When these people looked at Immerse, they seemed to be harboring evil intentions. Through their memories, Immerse knew that the Myriad Poison Star had a method of refining poison using living people. These people obviously treated themselves as ingredients for refining poison. However, when they saw Du Kong walking beside Immerse, they quickly retracted their gazes. Du Kong was a famous character on the Myriad Poison Star. In the past, countless men had designs on him, but they all disappeared without a trace. Many people said that those men were refined into poison by him. Immerse followed Du Kong all the way to the Myriad Poison Palace at the center of the Myriad Poison City. Because Du Kong was leading him, he was able to pass through without any obstructions until they reached the Myriad Poison Hall at the center of the Myriad Poison Palace. After being notified, the Myriad Poison Star Lord, Du Qianhua, arrived at the Myriad Poison Hall. A group of civil and military officials stood on both sides. Du Qianhua praised Du Kong first. Sure enough, it's still the Poison Lady. Thank you for your hard work. Poison Lady, please take a seat. Very quickly, the servants brought over 2 chairs. The Poison Lady, Du Kong, chuckled and sat not far away from Du Qianhua. Du Qianhua sized up Immerse from head to toe with a face full of joy and said with a sincere smile, "Instructor Immo is finally here. My 2 subordinates were insensible and offended Instructor Immo. Please don't blame them." Immerse chuckled. "It's fine." Du Qianhua continued. "This time, I invited Instructor Immo here mainly to ask Instructor Immo to help us raise the strength of the residents of the Myriad Poison Star. The civil and military officials already knew that Immerse could raise their strength, and at this moment, all of them had looks of anticipation in their eyes. Immerse chuckled and asked, "What happens after I help you raise your strength?" "Of course, we will reward Instructor Immo handsomely. Whatever Instructor Immo wants, feel free to tell us, as long as we can do it." Immerse smiled. "You don't want to kill me?" The moment these words came out, Du Qianhua's face turned cold. In fact, that was what he had in mind. First, he would ask Immerse to raise the strength of all the residents of the myriad poison star, and after that, he would kill Immerse. He couldn't allow Immerse to raise the strength of the residents of other planets. Immerse knew this through plundering Du Qianhua's memories. At this moment, Du Qianhua also removed his disguise. "You're right. After you raise our strength, you have two choices. One is to stay on the myriad poison star. The other is to die." Immerse chuckled. "And if I say no?" Chapter 643. What if I say no? Immerse asked with a chuckle. Du Qianhua did not seem angry at all. If Instructor Immo says no, then there is no problem. "Don't worry, we are all civilized dragons. We will not be rough with you." "Men." Following Du Qianhua's voice, two soldiers came down from the hall. They brought a person with them. That person was covered in blood from head to toe. The blood in some places had dried for a long time and had turned black. In other places, it was obvious that the wounds had just appeared and fresh blood was still flowing out. However, with the self-healing ability of dragons, the wounds had quickly scabbed over after a minute. Du Qianhua smiled and waved his hand, and the two soldiers immediately pressed down on the dragon. Then, they reached out and pressed on the scab that had just formed on the dragon's wound and tore it open. The dragon's wound immediately tore open again. A heart-wrenching roar erupted from the dragon's throat. After a minute, the wound scabbed over again. The two soldiers once again pressed on the scab that had just formed and tore it apart. A huge roar erupted from the dragon's throat, reverberating in the entire hall. This was repeated 3 times, and the dragon was already curled up in pain. During this process, the civil and military officials in the hall did not have any sympathy or pity. Instead, they all looked like they were watching a show. Du Qianhua smiled and explained to Immerse, "This person snuck into our 1,000-poison planet a month ago and tried to steal our secrets. After he was discovered, he was punished like this. We will make him beg for death and make him suffer 100 times a day." Instructor Immo, did you enjoy watching it? After Du Qianhua finished speaking, the civil and military officials looked at Immerse with ridicule and mockery in their eyes. They seemed to be impatient to see Immerse's terrified expression. However, Immerse chuckled. "It's just so. The moment he said this, the civil and military officials were slightly shocked. How could this guy still be so calm? Du Qianhua was also very surprised. He had seen a lot of people who looked tough on the outside, but in the face of a life and death threat, they would basically give in instantly. However, this instructor, Immo, actually laughed and said something in the face of such a threat. He carefully observed Immerse's expression, trying to see if he was pretending to be calm. However, he did not see any trace of pretense in Immerse's expression. However, in addition to being surprised, he was also a little angry in his heart. He had been a master of the myriad poison star for more than 1,000 years. In the past 1,000 years, he had been the only king on Myriad Poison Planet. Even the official emissaries had to be polite to him when they came to Myriad Poison Planet. However, this guy was clearly captured and brought to Myriad Poison Planet, yet he was still so arrogant. How preposterous! He didn't even take me, the master of Myriad Poison Planet, seriously. "Man," Du Qianhua growled. "Yes." Immediately, another 10 warriors came to the hall. Every warrior had the strength of a Tier 4 super-evolved giant dragon. Du Qianhua looked at Immerse and snorted coldly. Since Instructor Immo doesn't want to accept the toast, then he will accept the punishment. Then he waved his hand, and the 10 warriors strode towards Immerse. Colorful energy appeared in each of their hands. In terms of color, these energies were not like the reserved colors of the metal, wood, water, fire, and earth energies. The colors of these energies were very exaggerated. Red was blood red, green was bright green. Each color was as exaggerated and bright as possible, making people feel uncomfortable just by looking at them. It was obvious that they were all poison-attributed energies. Not all poison-type energies were dark green in color. In the natural world, there were thousands of poison-attributed energies, and these giant dragons focused on the poison attribute, so their energy would appear that color. These 10 warriors were Du Qianhua's 10 poison guards. After Du Qianhua became the master of the myriad poison guards, he trained a total of 20 poison guards. They were responsible for his personal safety. Each poison guard was a Tier 3 super-evolved giant dragon. These 20 poison guards could be said to be the strongest force on Myriad Poison Planet. It was no exaggeration to say that with these 20 poison guards, it would be easy for him to take over a city. Du Qianhua knew that Immerse was a Tier 3 super-evolved giant dragon, so he sent out his 10 poison guards. But these 10 poison guards were only 3 meters away from Immerse. Boom! 10 explosions were heard all of a sudden. These 10 explosions sounded almost at the same time, so it sounded like one. Then, these 10 people turned into 10 clouds of blood mist. But the blood mist was not blood red. Instead, it was the same as their energy. There were all kinds of colors: bright green, blood red, purplish black, and bright yellow. In an instant, the blood mist of all kinds of colors enveloped Immerse. Immerse was completely enveloped. Immerse waved his sleeves lightly and scattered the blood mist. The entire hall fell into a dead silence. Everyone looked at Immerse as if they were looking at a monster. Many people's eyes were filled with deep fear, and some people were surprised. Du Qianhua's face turned cold. How'd this guy do it? He did not even move, and the poison guards around him all exploded. This was completely beyond Du Qianhua's understanding and knowledge. Could it be a spatial skill? From what Du Qianhua knew, Immerse had skills of various attributes. Thinking of this, he hurriedly shouted, "Du Kong, I'm right here." A voice suddenly sounded in front of him, and the next moment, Du Kong's alluring figure slowly appeared. Du Kong was a Tier 6 super-evolved giant dragon with both poison and spatial attributes. She glanced at the blood mist that had yet to completely disperse, then looked at Immerse. "It seems that I underestimated you before." She had wanted to forcefully bring Immerse back, but before she could do anything, Immerse was mesmerized by her appearance and took the initiative to follow her. This had disappointed her, thinking that Immerse was just an old pervert. She never expected that Immerse would instantly kill 10 poison guards as soon as he arrived. In just 1 second, 10 Tier 4 super-evolved giant dragons had been killed. Du Kong could do it herself. Now, that Immerse could do it as well, she was naturally interested in Immerse. "If you listen to the Star Lord, I can spare your life." Du Kong still had that charming smile on her face. At the same time, she secretly took precautions in the space around her to prevent Immerse from using another spatial skill to attack her. However, just as she finished speaking, bang, her entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. The dark green blood even splattered on the faces of the ministers near her. At this moment, the expressions of all the ministers changed drastically. Even the Star Lord of Myriad Poisons, Du Qianhua, was shocked. Chapter 644. Immerse didn't even need to lift a finger to deal with those poison guards. He was able to kill them in an instant. This was barely acceptable. However, even the 6th grade super-evolved dragon Du Kong had been killed by Immerse in an instant. He still didn't even need to lift a finger. That was unbelievable. The expressions of all the poison dragons who had been dismissive of Immerse changed drastically. Even their star master, Du Qianhua, was shocked. That's impossible. Dukong is a 6th grade super evolved dragon. Moreover, he has both air and poison attributes. This guy is too terrifying. Terror appeared in Du Qianhua's eyes when he saw this. He put on a brave front and shouted at Mo, "Sure, you have been poisoned by at least 30 different poisons since the moment you entered Myriad Poison's planet. If you dare kill us, who can cure you of your poison?" Boom! Du Qianhua had just finished speaking when he exploded into a cloud of blue blood mist. Moreover, his blue blood spread in every direction, enveloping all the dragons present. The more than 30 civil and military officials present all trembled violently. It was important to note that Du Qianhua was a 6th grade super evolved dragon. Ever since he entered Myriad Poison's planet, he had started off as a dog. He slowly recruited other teams and finally became the Star Master, ruling over Myriad Poison's planet for over 2,000 years. It wasn't hard to imagine how powerful he was. However, he never expected to explode into a cloud of blood mist without being able to put up any resistance in front of this guy. Just how powerful was this guy? Even a 7th grade, 8th grade, or even a 9th grade super evolved dragon wouldn't be able to stand still and kill a 6th grade super evolved dragon with a single finger. Moreover, as the Star Master, Du Qianhua must have collected at least 10 life-saving measures over the years. Yet, they were all useless against this guy. That meant he was very likely a 10th grade super evolved dragon. No, even a rank 10 super evolved WIRM couldn't kill a rank 6 super evolved WIRM that had dozens of life-saving means in seconds without even moving a finger. Could he be one of the legendary primordial dragons? The legendary primordial dragons? Heavens, these people had no idea what primordial dragons were. They only knew that primordial dragons were above 10th grade super evolved dragons, but they had never seen it. Only the history books had records of ancient dragons. Furthermore, it was only in ancient myths and legends in the history books that ancient dragons appeared. It was said that the ancient dragons could easily destroy a planet. Judging from the current situation, this guy did not even need to lift a finger to kill so many people. This meant that he was undoubtedly an ancient dragon. At the thought of this, the dragons all turned pale. This guy wasn't even afraid of being poisoned by dozens of poisons, so it was obvious that he had some kind of method to deal with them. If that was the case, wouldn't they be bringing a fiend to the Myriad Poison Star by force? In the midst of the terror, a giant dragon said while trembling, "Sir, Senior, all of this was the Star Master's idea. Now that the Star Master is dead, and the person who brought you here has also been killed, please spare us." Yes, none of this has anything to do with us. I didn't agree with the Star Master's idea from the beginning. Sir, it really has nothing to do with us. Senior, if you're willing, we'll all listen to your orders and do anything for you. The entire Myriad Poison planet will be yours. Mo sure sneered. Now that they regretted it, what were they doing earlier? Some of the giant dragons saw from Mo Shure's expression that Mo Shure would never let them go. Thus, he directly crushed a skill stone that stored a spatial skill. He wanted to escape from this place. However, the skill stone was crushed, but he stayed where he was without moving. His eyes immediately widened as he looked at the fragments of the skill stone in his hand in disbelief. Could it be that the skill stone was fake? However, it wasn't just his skill stone that was useless. The other people's skill stones were also crushed, but they were all useless. Mosher smiled faintly. Don't bother, it's useless. He had already used spatial skills to imprison the hall. It was impossible for anyone who entered the hall to use spatial skills to escape. Even a giant dragon with spatial attributes couldn't escape easily. This was because Mosher's spatial skills came from the Void Dragon's 9 transformations. The Void Dragon's 9 transformations was the culmination of all spatial skills. Even a giant dragon that was 1 grade higher than him would find it difficult to escape from his spatial skills, unless a giant dragon that was 2 grades higher than him forcefully broke through his spatial skills with energy. However, he was already an 8th grade super evolved giant dragon. There were no 10th grade, super-evolved giant dragons on this planet. When these people realized that they couldn't escape, they were all scared out of their wits. They almost simultaneously knelt down before Immerse. Some of them even prostrated themselves on the ground and repeatedly shouted, "Instructor Immerse, please let us go. Senior Immerse, Lord Immerse, please let us go. We won't do it again. We won't do it again. Instructor Immerse, Senior Immerse, as long as you let us go, we're willing to do anything." However, Immerse couldn't be bothered with them. He waved his right hand lightly, and a dark green energy flew out from between his fingers. This dark green energy turned into a 5-meter-long divine dragon. Not a Western dragon, but an Eastern one. This divine dragon meandered in the air. These giant dragons had never seen such a creature. Humans were always filled with fear of the unknown. Their faces were all pale. They floated on the ground, not daring to move. Meanwhile, the dark green dragon continued to meander in the air. When it reached the center of the hall, boom, it suddenly exploded. In an instant, the entire hall was filled with dark green smoke. The bodies of the ministers and generals rapidly rotted in this dark green smoke. Their hair fell off, and the skin on their faces rotted away. One could see the flesh and bones on their faces. Even their bones were rapidly corroding. No, my lord, senior, please let us go. These people screamed in agony as if they were pigs being slaughtered. However, there was no pity in Immerse's eyes. These people had killed countless people and harmed countless lives to reach their current positions. They deserved more than death. In the end, these 30-some ministers and generals all died from the poison they thought they were best at. Next, Immerse leaped and broke through the hall. A pair of dark green wings unfurled from his back. He quickly flew 500 meters into the air. Looking down at the golden city below, the 5 fingers of his right hand moved slightly, and another dark green dragon condensed between his fingers. This dragon was hundreds of times larger than the previous one. It was more than 3,000 meters long. The dragon meandered in the air. Although it was condensed from poison energy, its scales, claws, teeth, and dragon whiskers all looked real. When the residents of the city below saw this, they were all aghast. Chapter 645. 1,000-meter-long dark green, poison dragon coiled in the air. Its scales, claws, fangs, and whiskers were all clearly visible. No one had ever condensed energy into something so lifelike. However, this was only the first transformation of the poison dragon. When the residents of the myriad poison city below saw this, their expressions changed drastically. They could feel the enormous energy contained in the poison dragon's body. They had never felt such tremendous energy from any creature before. When the soldiers below saw this, their expressions changed greatly. Although the entire upper echelon of the myriad poison star had been killed by Immerse, the warriors of the myriad poison star were well trained. They quickly gathered and activated the defensive array. Their defensive array was also of the poison attribute. This poison attribute could defend against both physical and energy attacks. Its principle was to cover the defensive barrier with extremely powerful corrosive toxins. This poison attribute could even corrode energy. That was why it would corrode any external physical or energy attack. This defensive array was built by the previous Myriad Poisons Planet Lord. It was said that it could defend against the attacks of super-evolved dragons of grade 8 and above. In truth, the poison dragon in the sky would not be able to break through this energy barrier in terms of sheer energy. However, it was important to remember that the 9 transformations of the poison dragon was a combination of all poison attribute techniques and techniques. It was a unique technique that took their strengths and made up for their weaknesses. It could counter all poison attribute techniques. That was why when the 1,000-meter-long dark green poison dragon came into contact with the colorful poison barrier, the barrier quickly melted away like blood coming into contact with fire. A short moment later, a 1,000-meter-wide hole was melted away. The poison dragon went straight in and bombarded the humans below. Roar! The poison dragon let out a long roar and charged toward the center of Myriad Poison City. It did not attack any buildings or dragons. Instead, it blasted toward the ground. Immerse had never used the 9 transformations of the poison dragon in actual combat since he had mastered it. He had never even used the first transformation in actual combat. In the 10,000 Poison City, every single one of them had their hands stained with blood. They had committed all sorts of evil deeds on other planets and were wanted by those planets. They had nowhere else to go, which was why they had come to Myriad Poison's planet. That was why Immerse wanted to use them to test the power of the first transformation of the poison dragon. However, at this moment, a black energy disk about 1,000 meters in diameter stopped the descending poison dragon. Bang! The poison dragon slammed into the black energy disk and exploded, forming a bloody mist with a diameter of tens of kilometers. It almost covered the entire sky of the City of Poisons. Looking up from the Myriad Poison City, the entire sky seemed to have turned dark green. One could imagine how serious the consequences would be if the poison dragon had exploded on the ground. At this moment, the black energy disk rose up and extended upwards, finally forming a huge black energy ball that enveloped the dark green smoke. Then it gradually shrank until it finally became a poison ball with a diameter of about 20 meters. This poison pill was so concentrated that it looked almost black. Even a level 10 super evolved dragon would not be able to withstand the poison. At the same time, a voice suddenly rang out. Where it is possible to let people off, one should spare them. Kid, you've gone too far. The voice seemed to come from underground. Moreover, no matter which corner of the city you were in or outside of the city, you would hear the sound as if it was coming from under your feet. The people in the Myriad Poison City were all stunned. Then, the fear on their faces turned into surprise. It's Poison King. That's right. It's the Poison King. Wasn't the Poison King already dead? What's going on? In the sky. After Immerse absorbed the memories of these people, he quickly understood what was going on with the Poison King. It turned out that thousands of years ago, before Du Qianhua arrived, the Myriad Poison Planet did not have a Star Lord. At that time, there was a Poison King. No one knew when the Poison King had appeared. It seemed that the Poison King had already existed when the first person arrived on the Myriad Poison Planet. He seemed to be very strong. Legend had it that he was able to withstand all the poisonous creatures in the Myriad Poison Mountain alone and come out unscathed. There were also people who said that they had once seen the Poison King in his dragon form. It was a poisonous dragon that was close to 10,000 meters long. Moreover, he was not only poisonous, but also earth-attributed. He was often able to merge with the earth. If he did not want to be discovered, even if you walked past him, it would be difficult to discover him. Under normal circumstances, the Poison King would not touch other people. He would only act when those people violated his interests. After Du Qianhua came to the Myriad Poison Planet, the Poison King never appeared again. Some people said that he had already left the Myriad Poison Planet, while others said that he was already dead. No one would have thought that the Poison King, who had not appeared for over 2,000 years, was still alive. When Immerse discovered this, he was slightly surprised. No wonder he did not use his demonic will to detect this guy. It turned out that he had merged with the earth. Based on how that guy was able to withstand the first transformation of his poison dragon, that guy should be at least rank 9. Otherwise, he would not be able to withstand the first transformation of the poison dragon. That guy might even be a rank 10 super evolved dragon. However, Immerse did not care at all. As long as he was not an ancient dragon, it would be easy to deal with him. This was only the first transformation of the poison dragon. If you have the ability, you could try to withstand the 3rd transformation, 5th transformation, or even the 9th transformation. Just as Immerse was pondering, a blue poisonous vine shot out from the ground towards Immerse, who was in the air. Before Immerse could react, it wrapped around Immerse's body. Immerse struggled a few times, but he was unable to break free. The poisonous vine had sharp thorns on it, and it looked like it would soon pierce through his body and inject some kind of poison into his body. When the residents below saw this, they were all overjoyed. Under the Poison King's attack, this guy could not even withstand a single attack. Even so, he still wanted to massacre the Thousand Poison City. What a joke. Since Immerse could not break free, he simply used a spatial skill and teleported away. Dozens of poisonous vines stretched out from below. At first, Immerse was still dodging, constantly teleporting away from these poisonous vines. But soon, more and more poisonous vines appeared below. With Immerse's speed, he was almost unable to dodge. Therefore, Immerse used a temporal skill, causing the poisonous vines to shoot at him to become very slow when they were within 100 meters of him. It was like slow motion in a movie. In this way, the poisonous vines could not hurt him at all. When the residents below saw this, they were all shocked once again. At the same time, a voice came from below: poison attribute, spatial attribute, and temporal attribute. 3 attributes. This little guy is quite interesting. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.